Coming up this week on the Markcast. While it's not a overly joyful or fun thing to talk about, it is a necessary evil, as we found out today from Coach Anthony Becht of the St. Louis Battlehawks. XFL roster cutdown day is here, trying to get the teams down to 51 men ahead of the XFL kickoff next weekend. Who survived the cuts? Who is still allowed in the building? Like Jamal Adams, are we locked out? Are we cut? What is happening?
They ain't cut me. Yes, they did. They must have cut me. Man. Already? Since year 2. God damn, y'all already cut me?
Really busy, loaded show today. Your one-stop shop, everything alt football news here. Big-time guest this week, Coach AJ Smith, offensive coordinator for the Houston Roughnecks, helming the offense down there in Houston this season. Really excited to see what AJ puts on the field. Catching up with AJ, a really unique perspective. AJ, brilliant mind, lots of technology at his disposal. How is AJ using that to kind of get his team, give them the leverage and the benefit heading into the XFL season?
It's special. I mean, it's like not just special, it's really special. And I don't get off about this to my team or anything or go on because, you know, it's about our team and stuff. But, you know, when 2020, I was living my dream. Like to be with June, who I'd been with for 10 years, at different places, installed offense 5 or 6 different times. And to be in the spring with the history of the run and shoot offense in spring leagues and to be in Houston, like all these things combined, and it's the XFL, like living my dream.
And then, as I mentioned, sad day here, XFL roster cuts, who is in, who is out. Wanted to go with their Project Runway title this week, but opted for Jamal Adams instead. Greg Parks, XFL Board's own, joining us. Biggest surprise cuts of the XFL roster day here. Who are we surprised to see go? And maybe who are we surprised to still see on XFL rosters?
That's really interesting to me. The St. Louis is the only team right now that's at 50 players because they don't have that third quarterback. And they can't really scour roster cuts because nobody cut a quarterback here at final cuts. So they're going to have to bring somebody completely new in unless they bring in somebody who was cut earlier in camp, a Mitch Kidd, for example, who was cut by the Guardians. The real interesting thing about this, though, too, is they're going to have to sign someone who is knowingly joining the team as a third quarterback.
And then Brandon Anderson, the man that ran down the initial XFL team logos and names reveal with me, comes back on the show. We have alternate logos and now alternate logos to XFL teams. Brandon's here. We've got you all covered. And then OurSports Central's USFL historian Paul Reeths. We are talking all things USFL Season 2, previewing the schedule that came out this week and getting Paul's thoughts on everything USFL Season 2.
Buckle up. We're starting how many weeks here of alt football that's going to take us all the way through the Grey Cup. When was the last time we had this?
And then from the Canton repository, Ed Balint coming on. Ed covered the Canton press conference here a couple weeks ago in Canton, talking, Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium and all of that. Getting Ed's thoughts on the USFL expanding their footprint in the city of Canton. And then finally, your USFL team of the Markcast, the Philadelphia Stars, Devin Gray, stopping by, talking USFL Season 1 and looking forward ahead to his return in USFL Season 2. Count them 3 USFL guests on the podcast this week. Stick that in your pipe. We'll see you soon. Hey guys, welcome to the Markcast. Reed here. Really exciting day. We are 1 week away here, 1 week from the XFL kickoff. I don't know if we would ever have gone to the day, thought we got to the day, but here we are. Very exciting times, busy show. I won't preface too much. If you want to hear the story about our live show coming up in Arlington, I will do that for the outro today. That will be Reed's little tidbit, but long story short, we are going live. Make sure you bookmark, subscribe, turn on notifications. We'll be live next Saturday, 11 a.m. Central Time to 1 p.m. Central Time ahead of the XFL 2 p.m. kickoff at Choctaw Stadium in Arlington. Moved mountains, lots of emails and phone calls, but I have a wonderful location. Lots of guests I'm going to announce this week. Make sure you are subscribed and locked into all that. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook. We'll share all of that. Your boy credentialed for the event. Very exciting. Really appreciate that. I was talking with the XFL people this week. I carry that as a badge of honor, right? To be included in that, to be included in the credentialed media, covering the XFL kickoff. Do not take that lightly. Very excited, and I will do my best to do all of you guys and girls proud that listen. But your boy Reed, be in the press box, XFL kickoff. Who would have thought it? Who would have thought here, CFL Grey Cup ×2. Now we're going to the XFL kickoff. Going to be exciting. Make sure you stay tuned for that live show. On the show today, like I said, AJ Smith, great. We did that kind of during the Texas ice storm. Really cool talking with AJ. He does a lot of virtual, reality training with his quarterbacks and all of that. Fascinating to hear how AJ is kind of using that. I mean, this could be that could be the secret edge here that the teams get, that the Houston Roughnecks have ahead of kickoff. Really excited for you to hear from AJ. Greg Parks, as always, taking time out. His family's in town. He said, Reed, still going to come on, talk about XFL roster cuts. We saw all of those come down today. Get Greg's thoughts on all of that. Brandon Anderson, the Comeback Period podcast. Really appreciate that. That's my jam, right? I'll bring on smart people to talk about football. Give me alternate logos any day. Happy to talk to that with Brandon. Appreciate that. And I almost forgot, USFL historian Paul Reeths runs OurSportsCentral.com. Really going into the USFL Season 2 schedule, talking the broadcast windows, talking the XFL and the USFL when they overlap, how all that is going to work out, getting Paul's thoughts on the USFL Season 2 approach thus far. How does he feel about the XFL? Would we like to see more, media attention right now? Get lots of thoughts with Paul. Ed Balint over at the Canton Repository. Love the name of that paper. All things USFL Canton. And then, like I said, Devin Gray coming on the show as well, courtesy of Devin and his agent, everyone setting that up. I'm really excited for that. But yeah, like I said, 3 USFL guests this week. Come at me. Very exciting. Should be a good show. Stick around at the end. I will fill you in on if you want to hear about the Arlington story, getting that all set up. But like and subscribe. We got the Brian Scott ball. If we still want that, going to be given away. I got all the Spring League jerseys and all of that. I think we're 20 away, 20 or 21 away from hitting 2,500 subscribers. That was the goal ahead of XFL kickoff. I think we would hit that during the kickoff, but let's hit it next week. Oh, before I forget, we will most likely have a season preview next week before our live show. Looking to book a big guest for that, so stay tuned. But I would expect either a Thursday, Friday episode like normal next week, maybe Thursday night, Friday. I will keep you posted, and then we will have, like I said, our big, hopefully this is the biggest show we've ever done coming up. A lot of work going together to get all of that. So with the XFL kickoff on Saturday. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys at the end. Hope you enjoyed the interviews. Thanks. Well, it's always a good excuse to put on my Chinese knockoff Houston Roughnecks PJ Walker jersey back from 2020. AJ Smith, how are you doing, sir?
Doing pretty good. I say we're doing good. We've been snowed in for 4 days, but we're just making it work.
It's been good. It's been a good excuse for me to catch up on some of these interviews because I've been emailing team reps. I'm like, hey, there's not a lot stuck inside that. How is everything going? How is we're week 3 here now? How's everything besides the weather?
Our team wise, everything's going to plan. You start hitting that phase of camp where you're not thinking, and it's more about getting reps and playing faster, and you're no longer teaching, you're just repping. And so we've accomplished that phase, and now it's just got to get the snow to melt so we can go rep some more before we play in 18 days.
Now, I do have to ask you, I am a Seattle Sea Dragons, I guess now fan, was a Dragons fan. You're the first Houston Roughnecks person we've talked to. I do have to ask, how is my boy Brandon Silvers doing? It feels weird returning to the XFL without him being on our team.
Yeah, no, Brandon, he's doing great. I personally got to coach him before where he he did a good job for us. I think he threw like 9 touchdowns and equivalent of 6 quarters, and it's doing a great job and came in. A lot of our quarterbacks, they're familiar with what we do in the system, but yeah, he's doing good.
Yeah, that'll always be my quarterback. That'll always be, and we have Ben DiNucci or whoever now. Brandon Silver's back. How would you say the team's doing offensively so far? Now that you were kind of, I know we were supposed to do like joint practices and ESPN tests and stuff, but besides all that, this will air next week. How is the team offensively doing?
Defensively, it's like you just kind of said, it reminds me of an old Coach episode of Dauber told Coach, he goes, man, I thought we're doing, we're really good. And he's like, yeah, just because we're always playing ourselves, Dauber. And, until you can go play somebody. But, from what we've seen, it's the same thing for us offensively. Things are just coming together. We're playing fast. Defense gets after us at times. And, it's been a good battle between the offenses and defense so far in camp.
I'm sure you've been asked this 1,000 times, but how does it feel to be back and just be in this version? What does that feel like different from last time? I mean, obviously you're in a much more high profile position, but overall.
Yeah, man, it's special. I mean, it's like not just special, it's really special. And I don't get off about this to my team or anything or go on because, it's about our team and stuff. But, when 2020, I was living my dream. Like to be with June, who I'd been with for 10 years, at different places, installed offense 5 or 6 different times. And to be in the spring with the history of the run and shoot offense in spring leagues and to be in Houston, like all these things combined, and it's the XFL, like living my dream. And, for that to get taken away, and especially there was some stuff going on in the background too for me as far as the 2021 season. You just never thought it would come back, and for it to come back, and then now it is the way it is. Like you said, a little bit different situation. I'm not with those coaches, but now I'm with Wade Phillips. It's again building another type of deal that you can't recreate this in any type of other level because this is the only level, and it's just I can't really explain how special it is.
Well, I know, Ed, obviously all of us in our circle know you and your work, and we're tremendously excited to see you get this opportunity. So it is cool now to, all that whatever and chaos, and now we've come back, and now hopefully it's bigger and better than ever. It is exciting. It's been many, many, many weeks of doing this, kind of waiting to come back, but I think it's going to be a long time coming.
Yeah, no, it's been good, and everything. I was telling this to somebody today. We're kind of having a similar conversation, and one thing that's been great for me is, a similar opportunity could have happened in 2021 if COVID didn't exist, and that always kind of, it's weight on your shoulders, like man. But since that time, it didn't matter what level. It was all about opportunity. From now till then, since COVID shut us down March 15th, I've coordinated in about 48 games. So it's kind of all full circle, meant for a reason. I feel way better having that under my belt to come back and get it right and get it going in 3.0.
How is the quarterback race developing right now? I know it's like I said, we're getting into the real scrimmages and stuff, but how is the 3 guys going?
They're all doing outstanding. We could win with all 3 of them. It's still a race, but all of them come in and, they've shown why we drafted them. We believe in all 3 of them. They all 3 at times go, wow. All of them have arm talent with, what we do, throwing the football, pass to set up the run. It's been days where, one day one looks like it's his and the next day he takes off. It's kind of a circle of who's just performing. But that's just, attributing to their skill sets. But as far as leaderships and intangibles, all of them are leaders. All of them are going out, doing the little things and getting us as a team coming together. And it's going to be interesting what happens here and who's going to take QB1 in 18 days. We still have a few more practices to determine that.
We saw with Howell's offense back in 2020, it struggled when we didn't have the proper arm strength, going when Landry and whatever went down. How do you feel about the depth of the room and being able to run your offense?
Yeah, it's we can win with all three. That's how good we feel about our quarterback room. And two, there's history of them all winning either with me or with other coaches that have been in, the spread run and shoot systems that are, identical to what we did and what we do in 2020. So, they got the experience to go in and do what we do.
How much progress were you able to see through the work that Jordan Palmer did with the quarterbacks headed into camp?
You'd have to ask the quarterbacks that specifically. I think it's always important to have a coach like that working with those guys. To me, I kind of see them as caddies in the way the new age of quarterbacks. Every quarterback needs a caddy that's different from the quarterback coach in the meeting room, that maybe he's seeing something mechanically that can help him out. Meanwhile, us, we're schematic and we're seeing all this other stuff. So you'd have to get with them and ask them, their progress. But I thought it was a real important deal that they got with him and had that critique of the position and a different set of eyes to show, hey, maybe, in your cinematic sequence, you need to do this with your hip and your eyes need to be here. And that's what Jordan brings to the table.
We saw, and I think even through that QBX video, a lot of technology brought into that, and obviously with your background and everything with the VAR as well. Were you impressed with the technology that's been able to be implemented? And if you had a chance to kind of include any of that with all the weather and everything, not be able to get outside to do practices as much?
Yeah, Brittany's laughing over here. That's exactly what I was just telling her. Talking about first with Palmer's deal, the breakaway data, that's just the machine that just confirms validity with your eyes. Like we knew that X, Y, and Z with the release and this philosophy of it. And then when they give you the data, it's like, yeah, that's what I was seeing. Very rarely is it opposite of what you see. And when it is, it's like, oh man, maybe we're kidding ourselves here. So the breakaway data we were able to get from the Palmer stuff when they were there just was spot on to what we thought. And then, it's been cool. So the VAR system, it's a virtual reality system I created 7-8 years ago. That being said, there's 7 to 8 years worth of film for the quarterbacks. So, when we first got here, they took every rep PJ Walker did in practice in 2020. And that's how we started. Say, hey, this is the same offense, same thing we're doing. Here's PJ doing it. And then, it was when Masoli did it in Canada and Manziel and all those guys we've had over the past 7 years. So, if it's snowing the last 3 or 4 days, we've kind of came down to the lobby. We made our own space, called it the new QB office. And they've watched, we've had 12 or 14 practices. They've put themselves virtually through that many times, as much time as they needed. And then they can go back and watch concept specific. So, we're probably the only team that's getting all 22 reps virtually,
That's incredible. I bet you could sell tickets for that to a lot of spring football fans and they would sign up to go through that same process. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, come run the go concept, and it's our number one pass play. That'd be cool.
I got a couple more for you here. I'll let you go, I promise. How do you feel about the coach-to-player communications and people being able to hear all that and obviously being brought back this year?
Yeah, I was the number one advocate for it the first time. And I was big on it when they, what was my thoughts on it? I said, well, it was extremely big for us. And I think in 2020, we were really the only team that used it right. If you watch, there were still teams huddling and just doing it, even though everybody could hear the call. Then, you take it a step further with us, and, that was so important to me in 2020. I didn't care what I said. Hey, I'm going to be head of technology on the sideline because I got to make sure June can do this. And he'd be there, and it'd be a play, and we'd get the play called, and now we didn't have to huddle. And then June would see Cam Phillips over on the corner and be like, hey, I'm seeing inside leverage. So remember on your 9 here, set them inside, go outside, be looking for the back shoulder, 15 to 17. Like, just it's different for us, or we could just check the route completely. And so that communication, I think, is so key to a new age of football that's going to be the standard in the future. We just happen to be the first to do it.
June, speaking of him, speaking of June, he said he's going to go for 3 every time. Have you been pushing Wade to let you do that as well?
Well, he started going for 3 every time because I'm the one who broke that down for him. So it was about week 3, and we looked at statistics across the board. And it didn't matter if you went for 1, 2, or 3, 33 and a third % were getting completed. That's all teams, all conversions. So we just said, hey, why don't we go for 3 every time? And, we told that to the league office like right before the game, before the Dallas game. And then we converted the first one. They're just like, what the heck? And so, it'll be interesting. There's some game theory behind it now, too, as far as being able to be up 2 scores as opposed to 1 score, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, based off if they got their extra point or not. Analytics will play a lot into that. But, yeah, we're not afraid to go for 3. I'd go for 4 if we can, back us up to 20.
Speaking of the rules, thoughts on the 4th and 15 conversion play, the onside conversion play?
Yeah, I think that's cool. It's been in on some other deals, and I don't know what the percentages are. I know they're extremely low, like as far as the converted onside kicks in the NFL. So I think even 4th and 15, that goes from maybe a 1%, 2% in the NFL of a onside kick to 10 to 20%. So the fact that you could raise that, and I think that plays a little, it's all over the place too, being an onside kick. So I'm a fan of it because it puts the offense back out there and puts it in our quarterback's hands.
And the last question for me, in terms of the offense and Wade and everything, how much freedom is he giving you here on the offensive side? Is it full keys? Are you able to drive the Ferrari? What do we got?
Yeah, no, we'll drive the Ferrari. We're not going to come out in the Houston Veer or anything. He wants us to get out there and do what we do. And, that's pass the setup to run, spread it out, be wide open, and, do what we've done to be successful in these spring leagues we've been at. And so, yeah, he's all for it.
Well, I'm excited. I appreciate it. Making good use of the weather here and everything, but setting this up. I really appreciate AJ Smith here taking time to come on the show. It means a lot.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Well, I can't remember what the heck we talked about the last time you were on. I'm sure it was a tantalizing conversation. I preface this every time in the show. Greg Parks, a long time, listener here of PW Torch and everything else. Greg filling me in on an incredibly busy time. All of us spring football people have a lot of other things going on, and I appreciate Greg hopping on Family in Town tonight to talk XFL roster cuts pre-kickoff. So thank you very much.
Hey, you know what? My parents are in town. That's important, but they're out to dinner right now. So XFL roster cuts are important too. So I wanted to make sure I had time for you, Reed, to talk about that with you.
You're missing dinner?
Oh no, they're bringing dinner back for me. Okay. So no, we're good.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure you're skipping
meals. No,
here.
It's not like I'm skipping out on a 4-course meal or anything like that.
Okay. All right. Well, we are here today. This was, and I joked at the top, like this is not a fun day, right? Roster cuts. It's never fun. We are a funny podcast. So I still do the things I do with memes and stuff, but very serious. You don't want to see anyone cut, make light of it too much. I thought Coach Becht had a really good, if you saw on the Battlehawks, or I think he posted it on his personal account today, really thanking everyone and all this, the guys he had to cut and the people he made. I thought that really humanized it. I liked seeing Anthony, Coach Becht do that. So Greg Scott, we kind of been tracking the XFL analyst, the surprise cuts as well with that. Before we get to anything of that, a couple of days ago, Ryan Willis departed from the Battlehawks. Speaking of the Battlehawks, wound up in the USFL here yesterday, I believe, with the Showboats. Were you surprised to see Ryan Willis basically be asked to leave? He asked to leave the XFL.
Not really, I guess. Once you thought about it, had this been another time, say 2020, I'm sure he would have stuck as a backup and worked his way into the lineup, either winning the job during the regular season if AJ McCarron had performed poorly, or just take the opportunities that come if McCarron got hurt or was ineffective or something like that. But this is a different time, and these players have so many different options. And Ryan Willis could bet on himself, and good for him, because it seemed to work out. I don't think there's any guarantee necessarily that he's going to start in the USFL, but I think he certainly has a better opportunity there to compete once again than he would have had as a backup, knowing he was going to be a backup, being told he was going to be a backup in St. Louis. So, we do talk about how unfortunate of a day this is for a lot of guys, but this is a different era. And yes, it's unfortunate that they didn't make the roster, but with the USFL out there and that league needing to pad its training camp rosters here in a couple weeks, I think a lot of these players, quality players, by the way, that were released today, are going to be able to find a spot in the USFL, if not get claimed by another XFL team. If this is going to be anything like what we see in the NFL at final cut downs, there's going to be a lot more opportunities. We could see several of these players who were cut today claimed by other teams. So when the XFL tweets out that this is the final roster or anything, there's no such thing as a final roster in football. Teams are always looking to improve their roster. And if the San Antonio Brahmas can improve their roster by picking up someone that the Seattle Sea Dragons just released at final cuts, they're going to do so. So there's still, I would expect some movement here in the coming days, perhaps even by the time people listen to this podcast.
Yeah, one thing, and just to point out as well, it is weird, very similar like the Brian Scott situation where, you want to start and you maybe you don't have the opportunity. Betting on yourself, it's like, you cover with WWE and AEW for the torch. I think those wrestlers have to be in a much better position now than they were, 10 years ago, with being able to kind of bounce back and forth. With the Battlehawks, they are most likely going to have to add another quarterback to replace that. Mike Mitchell reported XFL rosters are able to increase to 51 instead of 50 to have that third quarterback spot on there, and then have 46 on game day active as opposed to 45. And that Mike called it the NFC rule, where we saw the 49ers here, and we go down to Christian McCaffrey playing Wildcat or whatever. But
yeah.
So, with Willis being off the roster right now, they will most likely have to add someone this week. So I'll be curious to see kind of what they do with that. But yeah,
for sure. And Reed, just to jump in on that topic, actually, because that's really interesting to me. The St. Louis is the only team right now that's at 50 players because they don't have that third quarterback. And they can't really scour roster cuts because nobody cut a quarterback here at final cuts. So they're going to have to bring somebody completely new in, unless they bring in somebody who was cut earlier in camp, a Mitch Kidd, for example, who was cut by the Guardians. The real interesting thing about this, though, too, is they're going to have to sign someone who is knowingly joining the team as a third quarterback. And I don't know how many people are going to jump at that chance with the USFL out there and with that being an option. So, it's not, I wouldn't expect a huge name. I wouldn't expect a big name by any stretch of the imagination that's going to be added here. You could see somebody added like a Harrison Frost type. He made the Sea Dragons as a third quarterback after the team released Brian Lewerke earlier in camp. He's a guy who's eligible for the NFL draft coming up. So they could be looking in that direction, a guy who's eligible for the NFL draft, who wants to get into pro camp, wants to be on a pro team and go through that before they enter into the NFL, but also not really risk getting hurt or putting yourself in a situation where you're going to hurt your draft stock or hurt your chances of getting into an NFL camp. So you can come in as a third quarterback, very low risk, but learn a pro offense, learn how to study as a pro, learn how to play as a pro, and that sort of thing. So that might be a more realistic direction for St. Louis to go for that third quarterback than a name that a lot of people might recognize.
Yeah, I do think this third quarterback rule saved a lot of these, like the Roughnecks, and we had AJ Smith. He's on the show as well. And yeah, I kind of worried asking him last week about Brandon Silvers, because I'm like, I don't know if Brandon Silvers makes a 2 quarterback cut, but where, hey, like we lose nothing by carrying the third quarterback. It's just extra incentive. It's better for, like you said, the players can learn and be there. So I don't know if all of these 3 quarterbacks for every team would all be, as much as, we love the Brandon Silvers of the world. I don't know if he makes it on a 2 quarterback Roughnecks team.
Yeah, they've got a deep quarterback group there with Cole McDonald and Caleb Ellaby, who is a very highly thought after a draft prospect in 2022. So, Brandon Silvers, that's going to be one of the more interesting if we ever get a depth chart. I know we got a depth chart from the DC Defenders through Jake Russell, who covers the team in DC. And I'm assuming it's been put together for every team. But I don't know if the league is going to release those. I don't know if it'll be on the website like it was in 2020. But that's one of the interesting things, to see Houston's depth chart and see how exactly the quarterback room is going to stack up here heading into the regular season.
Yeah, and I know Mike, I reshared Mike's article as well. Mike's got his news article out where he has the depth chart. Yeah, these have to come out before. I know Max was emailing a couple of the team reps as well. Obviously, these will be out, but very important for doing the fantasy and the sports betting and everything with that as well. That if you want this to be a real league, we got to treat it like a real league, and we got to have depth charts put out ahead of time. But yeah, you see right now, Jordan Ta'amu is the starting quarterback for the DC Defenders.
Yeah, not really a surprise there. He's got the experience edge over Derek King, and that's going to be really interesting. I wonder if DC, because King is so talented as an athlete, you do wonder if DC is going to have a package of plays for him per game where they're going to want to put him into the game and do some wildcat type offense with him as the quarterback. So, even though he's second string on the depth chart and we don't often see a lot of second string quarterbacks get game action, he's one of the ones I would keep my eye on to see if maybe he gets in a few plays per game, just to give the defense a different look.
So we got that. That's going to be coming. We have the rosters here. You said you've been following along with XFL Analyst as he's done a lot of the transactional stuff today, because the theme today is kind of people we were surprised to see go, surprise roster cuts. Where would you like to start?
Wherever the most recent was. Let's just scroll down, I guess, and see. So we got the Sea Dragons. They had already cut a lot of players. You can see, I think a lot of those names were from the NFL Alumni Academy. We saw a lot of those players. And I'm going to try, if I get time over the next few days, to really dig into these rosters, because I want to see how many of those NFL Alumni Academy players who were assigned ended up making the rosters. I'm thinking it's a very small number, perhaps even single digits. And I wonder what effect that is going to have on the NFL Alumni Academy's relationship with the XFL moving forward, because the XFL did what they said they do. They gave all the NFL Alumni Academy players an opportunity in camp. But I think from the NFL Alumni Academy's point of view, they expected more players to make the team. So I'm curious as to if this will change the relationship in a significant way going forward between the league and the Alumni Academy. And, I'll be honest, I know the intent of the NFL Alumni Academy was to prepare players to get signed during the NFL season. I don't think many players did. I don't think many players graduated from the academy and were put on NFL rosters during the season. So I'm not sure, and I know they worked hand in hand with the XFL in trying to put players in the academy, but I'm not sure if the level of talent was quite what XFL teams were expecting to come out of the NFL Alumni Academy. So I don't know. I think both groups are going to have to go back to the table now that we've gone through a session and a season together, and kind of look at that deal and look at ways to perhaps keep it going, but maybe amend some of the details.
Yeah, and I'm sure corrected if I'm wrong, but when you got signed to an XFL playing, during the season, that third of your salary or whatever went to the Alumni Academy to pay back tuition. Mm-hmm. I do not believe the training camp salary fell under that, just because obviously I think training camp was like $1,500, whatever. We have the number breakdown on that video, but when you're getting your full weekly salary as an XFL player, a third of that was going to pay back the the Alumni Academy. And that is where the dilemma comes in, because it's like, well, you can sign 100 players to their training camp, but it doesn't matter at all if only 2 of them make the actual thing, because then the Alumni Academy is out all that money.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the XFL, they, to my knowledge, at least publicly, did not make any promises as to how many players were going to make the roster. They may have intimated to the NFL Alumni Academy that they would expect several to make the roster. But, if it's not in the contract, then there's really not much I don't think the NFL alumni can do to kind of litigate that. So, again, I think it's kind of maybe not so much back to the drawing board, but I do think that deal, if it continues, may need to be changed in some areas. I
just was laughing about this because someone, I think Kevin Seifert, retweeted the XFL comms where they put this all out, and one of the CFL listeners tweeted like, this is Bush League because not all the lists are like formatted exactly the same. And he called the XFL Bush League. And I said, let me know next time a rabbit runs across the field of play and halts a game, because that's what happens in the CFL. We want to compare and contrast things here. I think formatted slightly different PDFs is going to be okay here for rosters.
Yeah, I think each team is kind of putting together their own, and it's obvious they were not given any hard and fast guidelines about how to do it from the league.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, so we're back here, the analysts. So yeah, like you said, I have a feeling a lot of these cuts were the Alumni Academy. Going to the defenders here, we have running back Brian Herron, a lot of O-line linebackers on here. Anyone from the defenders stand out?
Brian Herron, a running back, stands out a little bit to me. That kind of surprised me. Parnell Motley is a guy who has a lot of NFL experience. Brett Diogardi was the only long snapper. They're on their third long snapper already. They cut Eric Lawson earlier. They signed Brett Diogardi, who was a pretty highly ranked long snapper coming out of the University of Florida when he was draft eligible a couple of years ago. And they ended up cutting him, and they're going with a tight end, Ryan Becker, as their long snapper, according to the depth chart. So we'll see how long that lasts. I'm not sure it's a wise move in an era of specialization, especially when games are won and lost on field goals so often. That's a position you want to make sure, although they're not the only team. The Orlando Guardians have a tight end as their long snapper too. So there's two teams now in the XFL who are not keeping a long snapper only. And so I don't know. We'll see how that goes. That makes me a little nervous. I would be a little nervous as a fan and as a coach, but who knows? It may work out and may save him a roster spot.
Yeah, I would want to give Mike credit on that too, because I know Mike with his article here on USF was talking about that. It was something in XFL 2020 as well, because we kicked the extra field, we kicked the field goal, but then all the extra points are, the field plays. And I think it was Sam Schwartzstein. I can't remember one of the interviews where, they debated, and do we have no kicking or do we get rid of that? Like, the XFL is in that weird spot where your long snapper, like, if you're not doing the extra point kick, like it's enough of a special teams that you have to care about it, but it's not enough special teams that it's like an every drive kind of thing. Like, do you get what I'm saying there? It's always in a weird spot, and it is curious how they handle these special teams and like the long snappers.
And it's not just on field goals, but it's punters too. We got to remember that. And punts are just as important in terms of field position and things like that. So it's a risk for sure. But I would assume that these coaches have seen enough of these players snapping in camp to know that they're capable of doing so. But who knows? A couple weeks into the season, they may rethink that decision.
We all know how the Michigan Panthers, how that worked out for them back in the USFL and having their punter try to kick the field goal. So, it's fine till it's not. And then it's not. Like I said, the Vipers, we had the whole Brian Scott thing that we talked about last week. Were you surprised to see Brian and that kind of thing unfold the way it was? And any other thoughts about the Vegas cuts?
Oh, for sure. It was an unfortunate situation, no matter what side, I guess, you believe, because there's two sides to the story now. And I'm not sure if any one has been proven more accurate than the other, at least at this point. But, looking back at the Vipers, Saeed Blacknall was in the XFL in 2020, a name you kind of recognize there. Nick Pickett, safety out of Oregon, kind of a surprise there. I thought he'd make the team. But really, Vegas, not a lot of surprises there beyond that, I don't think.
Cecil Cherry as well. He's someone that's been kind of a fan favorite. I think he was a fan control guy, and he's someone that just, you get a lot of these people that interact a lot on social media, and the God, what's his name? The guy that's always tweeting one of the other XFL guys that's always like commenting on everything there. Joe's Spencer, Jeremiah Spencer, or Spicer, one of those guys that's like always posting on. But Cecil's not like that. But I do know that people were surprised for that. I mean, people really root for Cecil Cherry with that. Definitely sad to see. Roughnecks, like I said, coming off of my chat with AJ, AJ felt very strong about all three quarterbacks. I don't know, like I said, with the Brandon Silvers of it all.
He didn't give you any scoop, Reed, about who's starting?
No, but I did ask him. I said, please take care of Brandon Silvers. Like he is, he is, that is my quarterback.
Near and dear to your heart, I know.
Any surprises here with the Roughnecks? I mean, AJ's kind of running a different scheme over there.
Yeah, Osiris Mitchell, USFL guy, was brought over before camps, actually during camp, I believe. Diego Fejo and Khalif Bryce, the two good linebackers, I was surprised, got cut there. And Brandon Easterling, another safety. Couple more surprises there in Houston than either of the teams we've looked at so far.
Fago, I know I had a lot of mixed pronunciations of his name with the various analysts I've had on the show. And I said, well, now we won't, we can put that one to rest, at least for the meantime.
Yeah. Not an easy one for sure.
Not an easy one.
Not a one you want to make a mistake on either.
Came up in the draft. I was like, okay, I'm going to let my guests do that. Getting down here. So we have, Arlington cutting down to 51, San Antonio Guardians. So St. Louis here getting rid of Deontay Dye. That was someone I had heard a lot about, talked with people online. Leslie Brown, running back. Anyone stand out? Like I said, I liked Coach Becht and kind of his state of the XFL address today. I thought it was good.
Yeah, a lot more names recognizable here. I believe that's Letty Brown, running back. Dante Dye, I believe, was with the Vipers in 2020. Giovanni Robinson, I believe, was just recently signed by the team. So, and Kai Abshir was a recent trade acquisition. Drew Singleton, linebacker out of Rutgers, a little surprising. The defensive backs, I mean, wow. Quentin Meeks has played for the Jaguars, played for a couple NFL teams, was, I believe, in the USFL as well. And I think he was one of the guys who was let out of his contract to go to the NFL this offseason, I think. Don't quote me on that. But then you got Jordan Miller, former high-round NFL draft pick. Obi Melifonwu, former second-round NFL draft pick, who was recently signed. Both of those guys were recently signed by the team. So for them to be cut, and Meeks, I mean, these are pretty big name guys. I'm surprised, especially with so many of the late additions. I mean, you assume with these guys getting signed late in camp, especially with that pedigree, that they would be guys who would kind of they have a very limited amount of time to show. So you would assume the team kind of already knows what they have in signing them and already has a spot on the roster. But for a lot of these guys, that was not to be.
Yeah, he was with the Bandits and then went to the Saints and then back to the Battlehawks. And that was the thing too. And it wasn't Meeks. I saw one of the Battlehawks guys tweeting today, like, I got cut from the NFL and now that was fine, but I can't believe I got cut from the XFL. Like there's a lot of negativity right now around that. And, I would just preach, like, it's a small world. You still have the USFL watching. Like you said at the top of the interview, you still have other XFL teams watching. Like, I wouldn't besmirch too much right now. Like, well, I got cut from this rinky-dink league. Like, what? Like, I mean, this is an opportunity for everybody. And the world, that was like with the Brian Scott, whatever happened there, and Ryan Willis. Like, the world is really small, and all these teams talk, and all these, coaches and staff know each other. I would just be very careful about that and like poo-pooing too much.
I'm not sure if it was a subtweet or not, but I'm sure it was no coincidence that not long after Dr. Jen Welter, one of the coaches with the Vipers, tweeted simply, "Be a pro." Yeah. And so, I feel like that was kind of in reference to some of these players who were taking their frustrations to social media. And I get it. Like, when you've been in the NFL, when you've been in training camps, and now you're told you can't even make the XFL, like, I get that there's frustration there, but you've got to find a better outlet. You've got to be able to handle it better than putting everybody on blast on social media. There it is.
I agree with that. And, this is, and I look at this the same way I look at the CFL. CFL is not a big deal to some. It's a big deal to others. To the people involved in the CFL, they carry it like it is the most important thing in the world, where they think it's tremendously important, right? Like us being able to go up and cover stuff, whatever. XFL, whatever you think of the XFL, they are carrying themselves with 100% of like, we are in this, we want to build the best. There's no free rides, there's no anything. And so, yeah, you might think you're better or worse than whatever, but the people involved in this, same with the USFL, like they view this as, a paramount of importance, what they're doing. So
Yeah, and one of the things that I hope the players understand is there's no incentive for XFL teams to cut players and keep lesser ones on the roster, right? This isn't the NFL where, oh, this guy has a huge contract, we can't cut him even though someone is outperforming him, or something like that, where they find situations like that where a guy's doing well, there's just no room to keep him, and a guy who plays well ends up getting cut because of contracts, or this guy's making too much money, we can save such and such a money by cutting him even though he's still good. This isn't one of these situations here in the XFL, and so the incentive is to put the best product on the field, and to do that you keep the best players. So we can be surprised at a lot of these guys getting cut, but the bottom line has to be, until I find out any differently or you find out any differently, it's just someone outplayed them for that particular scheme. And sometimes it could be scheme dependent too. Some players are better in some schemes than others, and that could be a factor as well. But there's no incentive for lesser players to beat out players who outplayed them in camp.
I'm going to show a tweet here. I'm so glad that peeing is trending in the United States right now. If you look at my trending topics, but not sure why that's.
God bless Twitter.
Not personalized for me, but I just, I like to keep this show PG, but I'm going to show a tweet here and I'll censor it when I talk. But you have like this, Emmanuel Beal. I was always taught, keep the best, cut the rest. This S is comical. Best of luck, Vipers. Peace sign. That is the kind of thing that probably Jen Welter's tweet was talking about.
That's true. Yeah, and that's a Viper. So yeah, for sure.
Coming down here, Jonathan, analyst put this out, Jonathan Alexander. That was one of the other ones that I saw that was tweeting. Yeah, getting cut from the NFL was understandable because it's politics. I'm getting cut from the XFL too. This is the one I was talking about.
And that's a surprise. That's another surprise cut. Jonathan Alexander out of Charlotte was in camp with the Panthers. Some players just need this, and this is kind of my own reading of Alexander's tweet, not to get too try to get in his head at all, but some players just need that motivating factor. They need that feeling. How many times have we heard, teams like the Kansas City Chiefs or like the Philadelphia Eagles, they're both in the Super Bowl, and they're using disrespect as a motivation. It's like, you guys are clearly the best teams. That like, who's disrespecting you? Some schmo, in Hoboken, New Jersey, who's got like a podcast listened to by 5 people. Like, but players need to use that as motivation for themselves to keep going and to keep working hard. So that could be what some of this is. But again, you hope to see him handle it a little better, generally speaking.
Well, it's like, what was it Brady was saying? It was last year. Like, yeah, I still remember those teams that didn't take my call when I was coming from the Patriots. And you're like, okay.
And that was the same with Aaron Rodgers, when he fell all the way, and he was supposed to be a high draft pick.
Yeah. So going back through here, we have some more from the Roughnecks, current XFL. So this is going back to yesterday now. I don't know if we have all the team breakdowns on that. Any other thoughts, any other general thoughts from any of the teams that we have thus far?
I've only had a chance to really glance at the rosters, but a lot of talent out there. I mean, there are some positions that look a little weaker than others on some teams, and some question marks here and there. But I think every team has a host of quality players who've proven that in the USFL, who've proven that previously in the XFL, who've proven it in college, even if they've not gotten the opportunity to really prove it in the regular season in the NFL. So I'm expecting some really good football out there. I don't know how it compares to XFL 2020, but if it's a drop off, it's not a very big one at all, even with the USFL out there. So, and that's the other thing too. People talk about, is there enough room for 2 spring leagues? If you're talking, and there's a lot of factors that go into it, right? It's, can they get television? Can their money backers keep the money flowing, even if they're not bringing in a lot of money, even if they have to eat a lot of losses in the first couple of years? Certainly one of them is quality play and quality players. Is there enough of them to go around? And I think we saw with the USFL rosters as they stand right now, as well as the guys who were cut from XFL rosters today, that the answer is a resounding yes. There is absolutely enough to support 2 high-level spring leagues. And now we've got apparently the Arena Football League coming back. So that's going to be another area where players can ply their trade, where coaches can do the same. So, it's getting to be that exciting time now, Reed. We've spent so much time talking about this. I posted on Twitter a month or two ago that this version of the XFL has lasted longer than either of the other versions, and this version hasn't even played a game yet, which is just, it kind of blows your mind when you think of it that way. But I can kind of throw that tweet in the garbage here in the next week or so. So I'm really excited about that.
This is episode 131. Still have not had that. I will say, as the resident Floridian here, thoughts on the Guardians. Getting your thoughts on Paxton Lynch. I believe I see him on this roster. I still don't think the website is updated to reflect Paxton Lynch's signing, which happened, I believe, a week and a half ago now. But thoughts on Paxton, because people are really down on the Guardians. I don't know if you know that.
I wasn't really impressed with their draft, to be honest with you. I think you can probably go back in my draft analysis on XFL board, and I was not thrilled. I think their offensive line still scares me a little bit. In particular, when I was looking through these, I noticed that. And their quarterback room was a little iffy to begin with, right? They had Mitch Kidd, they had Quentin Dormady, they had DeAndre Francois, guys who had not really proven themselves in any kind of high-level professional ranks. And so I think the decision to add Paxton Lynch was a good one, as down as people kind of are on Paxton Lynch. And, just judging by the numbers, I didn't see him play in the USFL, but by judging by the numbers, he had a decent couple of games there. I mean, he didn't embarrass himself, but at least based on his numbers again. So, I think he vaults right to the top of the depth chart for Orlando. So, yeah, it's not I don't think it's as deep as some of the other teams, but I think Lynch might give him a chance to compete. We'll see, though. The offensive line has got to keep him upright, and we'll see if they make any additions, any waiver claims. That could be a position where they could scour the waiver wire of players who were released today and make some pickups. But that's kind of my take on the Guardians as they stand.
Well, there you go. Next we speak with you will either be during kickoff, after kickoff. XFL football will be played most likely by the time we speak to you again on the podcast. Any other thoughts? Where I had Paul Reeths on the show as well today, USFL historian, and are we getting enough national media exposure? I mean, any other thoughts before the world changes here and we foot kicks ball in Choctaw Stadium?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the advertising. I think ESPN has ramped up the advertising a little bit more. Still probably not to the point where a lot of XFL fans would like to see it yet, but we'll see if the last week is really a big push. They've got some shows out there. I know it was posted on Twitter that they've got an XFL Today show coming up on ESPN Plus and a big preview show coming up before the kickoff of the first game, an hour long. So, we know that they've been accumulating footage. The league has throughout training camp and even during the draft and coaches meetings and things like that, starting building the league. They were really filming a lot of that stuff. So I would expect to see a lot of that on there. And the XFL Today on ESPN Plus, I hope, is a weekly staple, because one of the things that was missing from both XFL in 2001 and the league in 2020 was really that preview show or recap show at the end of the week, because that, I think, for people who, you need as much exposure as you can for teams and players who are not recognizable to the general audience. So you need to be able to get those teams and players out there as often as possible. And by previewing, by giving a story to the games, this isn't a league that has 25 years of rivalry where, the 49ers and the Cowboys play on a Sunday and it's unsaid. People don't need to talk about the history there. People know about that. Whereas in the XFL, you need to give people a reason to be invested in these games beyond just the play on the field. And I think a pre or post game show will do that. And I hope even if it's just on ESPN Plus, they're able to pull that off weekly. So, it's an exciting time. Rosters are set for now. We'll see how much change is made before week one, and hopefully we get the depth charts in the coming days. And midweek next week, we'll start getting injury reports, and it'll feel a lot more real that we'll be kicking off on Saturday.
Yeah, if nothing else, to check out the Markcast. We'll do your pre and post game. Remember, they had like Coach hosted a thing on YouTube. I thought, and I don't know if they did it every week. But I thought Coach hosted something that was decent.
Yeah, they had a couple WWE personalities. I think it was Coach and Charlie Caruso.
Yeah,
were the two who hosted something. It was but I think you got to reach as large of an audience as you can, and again, ESPN Plus is a small slice of what they could be doing, but I think it is still a step up from the YouTube show that they had in 2020.
I do know that, and it's good because our live show on Saturday will go up right up until the XFL pregame show. So I'm glad they worked around that. They posted something last week right during Markcast time on Friday, and I said, guys, I've been here. You gotta find Friday 7 a.m. Pacific. No, I'm kidding, but I think it's good. It feels real. It's exciting. It's good. And I hope we get these, like you said, the depth charts and everything. So all the fantasy people can be happy. And I know there's a lot of sports betting people as well that there was a big chaos this week because they weren't working with the people and they weren't, I don't know. I'm sure they'll resolve that all by next week.
Yeah, I think there was an addendum to that tweet where it was like, oh, yeah, they're doing this, this, and this. So they are involved in some way, and we'll see if they get more involved here as we get closer to kickoff.
Last question for you. If Fox is broadcasting the Super Bowl here next Sunday. I forgot to do this in the intro, so we'll just make up for it now. I already recorded all that. Does Fox take the XFL's dirty money and air a XFL Super Bowl ad, or would the XFL even dare try?
I think I read where 30-second spots are going for $7 million.
$7 million.
That may be a little bit too rich for the XFL's blood. I think it would be cool if they did. I know they did in 2020, but that might be a little excessive for them. But I would let's just say I would be surprised if they had a spot during the Super Bowl commercials.
You mean you wouldn't spend a third of the price that you spent purchasing the league out of bankruptcy to air one 30-second ad?
There's going to be so many people watching the game. Like it does have to be tempting to do that. But I mean, I think of what from based on just what we've seen of the XFL, like their advertising budget has to be like 1/20th of that. So are you going to blow like you're in, 20 times your advertising budget on a 30-second commercial during the Super Bowl? Again, I don't expect it. I would be pleasantly surprised if they had something, but I'm not going in with the mindset that they're going to have something.
So what are the tickets going for? 3,500. I saw some of those I
don't even want to look. That's just that makes my skin crawl.
Pay somebody and then have them put XFL on the diaper and have them just run out into the field.
I would say do a fly over around the stadium, an XFL banner.
Yeah, just
fly it around the stadium. That's enough.
Yeah, I think you could do that. I think the guerrilla marketing tactic would work really well.
I wouldn't do the XFL hot air balloon. That did not work in 2001. So I would stay away from that. But yeah, flying a sign over the stadium, maybe. Yeah.
I'm just thinking I'm just laughing. I'm thinking Russ Brandon and Danny Garcia and and Anthony Beck roll up in a tank DX style with the cannon coming out. We got Russ Brandon on there with Danny Garcia.
There we go. Hey, you can't rule it out.
Awesome. Greg Parks with XFL Board. I appreciate your time today. Thanks again.
Thanks, Reed.
Well, it's only fitting that the man that was here, we ran down the initial, team logos and all of that back a couple months ago. Now we kind of knew these logos and then they went away, the alternate ones. And now they're back officially. We have Brandon Anderson here of the Comeback Period on YouTube. How are you doing, sir?
Good, doing good.
So this is weird. So if people remember, we had the team names come out, the logos, and then in the initial ESPN article, they had these alternate logos for a lot of the teams. And I think you were on the stream, and I know you did videos, and Mark wrote an article, and we had all these different things. And now these are official. We have some merchandise and everything else. What do you make just of the idea of alternate team logos here? heading into kickoff. It seems a little much, but what do you make of it?
Yeah, I feel like, and I just did my own YouTube video and like didn't really go in much depth because I know I was going to be on here, and I know we had talked originally when we were live on the air and we found these. I think they are a little much, and the reason I say that is why does some teams have two? Why does some teams have one? And I still go back to the Guardians being too basic. That's just a different thing. And then I'm still not understanding, other than playing cards of the Vegas Viper logo, like, and it's a French word. I'm gonna butcher it, so I'm probably not even gonna say it.
Fleur-de-lis.
Yes, there we go. I don't even know what that does. I googled it, tried to find anything in Vegas that resorts to that, and it comes up with a restaurant, but they don't even have a logo with that. So I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, so we'll see here, and I've got the PNGs of all these. I got sent over to me, so we'll go through. We have, like Brandon pointed out, it's weird because some teams have multiple alternative logos, some do not. We have just 8 T-shirts right now, and then on the ones where they have the alternate logo, like the Brahmas one, and we'll zoom in, like they have the main one, and then you have like the secondary alternate logos. So now we have like the Brahmas logo, the Brahmas secondary, and then they're all, you'll remember. And I did see people like, well, what's going on with this? We had these back in 2020. The Dragons had the S and the Battlehawks. I don't know if all 8 teams had them back in 2020, but they definitely have multiple versions of logos back in 2020. So this is not a foreign XFL concept, but it is a weird thing here the week before kickoff.
Yes.
So we'll get here. So you see on the shop, we have all this stuff, but then we go over here. So here's first and foremost, everyone will know this one. This is the Arlington. The Arlington R has never really sold itself onto me. I know it looks okay. I've seen some sweatshirts and stuff. It looks okay. We have the Renegades, the Bandit, whatever back. I thought there were trademark issues with this, but what do we make? Should this have been the logo from the beginning? What do you make?
Yes, 100%. Especially being at the XFL Town Hall back in July of last year, and you had all the Renegades fans there in full gear with this logo. And I mean, every time Danny and Dwayne were asked in the Q&A, bring our logo back. And obviously they were disappointed when not. And I think the XFL knew that. But there's also, when we saw the Under Armour video of them doing the behind the scenes of the jerseys and all that, we knew they were using this logo because it was part of that video. So I think they knew all along this was just like the Battlehawks namesake. You couldn't get rid of it. It was just too known for the XFL in 2020.
I like the video they had with them, like with like the motorcycle, like, hey, we all know this is coming back. I don't know. To me, this is like we're having our cake and eating it too. We got to rebrand. We got to put our our stamp on it. But then, yeah, we still we know you guys like this one. Let's keep it around. I'm curious, like usage of these, because I don't know anyone in the world that would put the Arlington R on, or the AR, whatever that is, the AR logo on anything when you have this now to work with.
Exactly. I feel like the helmets are now cheated, because I'm like, I would rather have this with a different color blue, because I think the blues are a little different. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, because I know the color scheme of all the merch I have from 2020, that blue is not the same as it is today.
Yeah, if you look on here, we'll share this. So it's the light blue is definitely a different shade of blue on there. I mean, this feels a little bit more in line, but I get what you're saying. I don't, the away, we're still, and that's a debate for another day. Do we like the Arlington Renegades away uniforms? But so we have this. It's the Bandit. I think people are happy to have that come back. This is another one, and we did we did the whole breakdown of this where it's like the Pentagon and it's the shield like before. It's not quite the shield. This to me is, okay, you took my homework, but you did do your own. Like the Renegades one, okay, copy and paste from 2020. This one, hey, we're trying to do something a little more here. I think people will be happy the shield is back.
Yeah, I do. I think so too. And I like the more Pentagon design of it. I do think it was funny how they advertised it though, as the shield is back. This is not the same shield, obviously, from 2020, especially with all the fans that have their foam shields probably still sitting in their basement or whatnot that they're bringing back. But I'm like, it's different. But like you said, it's like someone put their own touch on it.
Yeah,
I guess
I know
I
what
actually
you're
like
saying,
it
though.
better. Now I see. Yeah, now I see you have that up there. I think the Pentagon version is better.
Yes, I got one of these. There's a photo of me, I believe, on the website. I don't know if this ever made it out of DC. I had one of the foam because I was at the kickoff. I had one of the foam. There's a photo of me very angry with it, defending DC against the Dragons, but I don't know where that ever went. I like this one. Like you said, it is the shield, but it's incorporating the Pentagon. Like that explains. Okay, like you were saying before with the Florida League, like. I know what this is. Your DC, like this makes sense to me.
Yep, exactly.
So the other one, and I, as a Commanders fan, the Washington Commanders fan that saw a lot of like alt world, hey, this concept art for what the Commanders could be or whatever it could be in DC. I like this. I don't know where you use like this versus the other one, but what do you? It's like the emblem, and it's got the stars and stripes.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I called this like on my show. I called it like the banner version that you would see hanging up on like one of those flagpole things on the side of the street. I could see that use for this. I think it looks too big for a scoreboard. But yeah, I don't know where this would be used.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, this is like a shoulder pad. We're putting it on, right? We're putting it on the side of the hat. This hanging different use cases for it. I guess these at least fit in the same like design. I don't know. This feels like it came from the same design book, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. Were there specific uses for all these ahead of time? Do we know what we're doing with all these? Or do we had some other trademarky things that we were going to get rolling? I don't know the specific use. I would love to talk with someone about like what are the specific planned use cases for all of these, because people really care about this stuff. I don't know if even the people in the league realize it as much.
Exactly.
This was another one that was shown. I think this is a downgrade over the Houston, the oil of Derek and all of that. Now this is more of the gear. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I don't mind it, but I think as we pointed out on the live show back in, I think on Halloween morning, that this is just, it's too basic. I mean, the H is even basic. If they would have put the actual logo inside of the the gear thing, I think that would have made it a lot better, but this just looks like someone made it on paint.
Yeah, it's because like you have some of these like Renegades. This one, we don't have any text, no anything like that, right? This has like this is back. I know it has the H, but it feels more like this is just like an emblem, a logo that we're gonna have versus the DC flag where it's a little bit more okay. We are the DC defenders. I don't know. I get uses of that where we have some things that are more text based like this, and then other things that are a little bit more emblem based. The Houston, this is where you lose me. This is where you lose me. The Guardian G. What do you think of the Guardian G?
No, and no. I for some odd weird reason, I when I recorded my show just a little bit ago, I for some reason thought there was a G logo for the Giants, and I kind of was like, is Danny Garcia trying to give like some kind of respect to the New York because they couldn't have the team there and naming it? But then I looked at it, I'm like, there isn't one. So I don't know where this came from. I don't like it. What is it? It's just a G with some kind of fancy font.
Well, I don't get, because here, and I'm just pulling up like if you wanted to do the G with a little bit more of a face in it or something to give it like the DCD that no one likes, that's got like the star in it that makes it still looks like a spoke or whatever to me, like a Dallas thing, but to give some definition to what that G is, like it looks like a person with a big nose sticking out, or it looks like a backwards baseball cap. I just don't know what I would have done if we're going to do that specific curvature of the letter. I just don't know what the point of that is.
Yeah, I didn't understand that, and it's one of those things I sit here, I'm like, where would they use this other than on TV for the bottom scoreboard or whatnot, or in the stadium for the actual scoreboard? But at the same time, why not just use the main logo? I don't know why. I think in 2020 with the Guardians in New York, they had the face fronting like Guardian or whatever it is, gargoyle, compared to just a letter. It's like they were like, hey guys, we just need something basic for this. We don't care. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, and I don't get if we're trying to get away from the Cleveland Guardians here. I just I don't get that either. And where it's that fonts and everything means so much. It's such a specific curving in and a building of this specific how you have this G. I don't know. I just don't. This doesn't even speak to if you go back to the the logo, much more curved, right? It's much more curved. It doesn't even seem like it's the same design language where we have this jutted G, very boxy. It doesn't feel like it's from the same design palette at all.
No, and I would love to know, because I know we broke down those crazy stories they had behind each logo on launch day, and I would love to know the behind the scenes of this, like the curve of it, because we talked about that. They had those weird, like someone wrote a book of poetry based on some logos. Like, where do you guys get this stuff? I'd love to know if they had something for this.
Yeah, I know Christopher now is one of the graphic designers for the XFL. I know he's on Twitter. Like, I don't know if does he have his hand in this? Were these all like, I would love, like, because I saw him tweeting out today, like, oh, this one's so clean, whatever. Like, Chris, hit me up. We'd love to know, like, what is the story behind the curvature of the G here? This, I believe, is a hot mess. I understand that it is an S, and I presume that's supposed to be the Alamo. I have stood in front of that very structure and had my picture taken on multiple occasions. Feels really busy. What do you make?
Yeah, I think it's busy too. I like the Alamo part of it. Like, I can see that right away, but then the S just gets like too locked in there. It's all over the place, and yeah, I do think it's too much, and I don't know where. It's another logo. I don't know where fits in with this team. This team is the Brahmas, and it's this like powerful bull or whatever you want to call it, and then you have this. Like, I understand they're trying to go with the San Antonio theme, but no. I mean, we can kind of see it.
Yeah, I mean, right. It's supposed to be the Alamo, right? I mean, I'm not crazy here. Like,
no, yeah,
it's supposed to be. I've stood right out in front of here. This is a wonderful, wonderful. If you're gonna go take in the Brahmas game, definitely go see the Alamo. They do like they shoot off guns every hour. It's a really, really cool thing. But I don't know, the S. It feels a little casino-y to me too. Like, it feels like we're incorporated in that. But no, I don't. I like the color, but the S really gets lost in that.
Yeah.
This was the one that was from so this is like the alt logo. This is the one that's like on the shirt, because I was looking to see, like, okay, are they even incorporating this? Like, it's on the shirt here. If you see with the with the Brahmas thing, we saw this before. I felt like we were high on this. Are you still high on this?
No, and so someone on my show, on my comments, pointed something out to me that kind of worries me, and I want your take on this too. The arch in the top of the B, that looks like a Nike swish.
Oh, let's we'll pop that up here.
Except, I mean, it doesn't come in like the Nike swish does, but the top of it, or the front end of that B, or the top, whatever, looks like it. I'm like, I can't unsee it since someone said it. I'm like, oh no, it's not exact where they get copyrighted. I think kind of dismissed that when someone said it. I'm like, no, that's not that close, but I do see it.
I can see that. It is a weird, if you're gonna do the B there, I also don't like. I don't like where if you want like Reed's design stuff, I don't like losing the B hole here. If we're talking
Well,
about,
I remember when we saw it live, you didn't even see the bee at first. I remember like, hey, there's a bee with the Brahma like horn, and you're like, wait, a bee? And I remember we were talking and like joking, like, oh wait, there is one. So it takes a minute to really focus, like you said, that cutoff of the yellow. It does distract you from like, is that a bee? Is it something else?
yeah, I would have definitely preserved. Yeah, they have bee holes and bee holes here, but I would have preserved the bee hole. But if you look on where I got, like, they keep wanting me to buy Nike swooshes, but I have. It does. It looks like the swoosh. I think it looks like the swoosh too much. I see that being an issue. I don't think they're going to get sued for it, but that's absolutely the Nike swoosh. I appreciate you pointing that out.
Yeah, and whoever did that on my, thank you for that. Because at first I was like, nah, this person's crazy. And then I looked at it, I'm like, oh, I can't unsee it. Oh.
And that's it. Once you see it, this I
Are you still down on it? Because I remember you did not like it.
Yes, and
okay.
I know Mike Mitchell is really high on this because Mike Mitchell likes tridents. That's fine. You can like a trident as much as the next guy. There's a lot of anchorman like, Rick, where did you find a trident? Like, okay, I get all that, but this is still, it is this, and we are trying to look at a logo here, and I guess it says S somewhere in there.
SD, yeah. The green is the S, the D, or the orange is supposed to be the D. And what's funny is my wife, who was a Seattle Dragons fan in 2020,
she's out.
She is obsessed with this logo now.
Oh.
She loves it. Because she also says that it looks like a Celtic, not cross, but something.
Celtic knot. Yeah.
Yeah, Celtic knot. And she's like, I think that's why I'm drawn to it, because she's Irish. And she's like, I also like the whole Triton thing and everything. I'm like, okay, I warmed up to it. I like it a little bit, but I can still see where it is a mess. It's just too much. It maybe take out the blue.
Yeah, I think that might help. I don't. Again, and we'll get to the other, because we got another Sea Dragons alt logo here, but yeah. I just don't. It doesn't speak any design language to a lot of the other ones. We have a lot of points. The Sea Dragons logo, I have my hat on. It's very, very curved. It's the S. It's Seattle. Nothing about this speaks Seattle either. I don't know. Orange and green. That's about it. But could you put the Sea Dragon with the Space Needle? Could we put something in there?
Right. Yeah. Something different.
If you did not like the Seattle Sea Dragons primary logo, I do not believe the Seattle Sea Dragons alternate logo is going to do anything for you.
No, and I honestly, I didn't even notice this at first because, they released some videos for them. Some they had something else, but I didn't notice this until actually looking at the T-shirt. I'm like, wait, that's the dragon cut in half. So yeah, I still don't like it. I still like the original one. I'm set on that.
I think the StreamYard here kind of cuts off a little bit, but I think the dragon here, I think the criticism of the new Dragons logo, the new Sea Dragons versus the old Sea Dragons is like, we like the old one and the way it felt and the size of it and everything, and then we've kind of crunched it down with the with the Trogdor Sea Dragons one, and now it's like it's even less. You're going in the wrong direction. We want to see more of the dragon, not less of the dragon.
Yeah, it looks weird, and I think it's even worse on the shirt.
Yeah, I don't like this. I mean, and I believe this is on the shoulder pads of the jersey. I believe this is on. I believe this is on the shoulder pads, which is just lovely. This screams Star Fox to me.
Oh no, I see it now. Oh
right?
Man, yeah.
What is this?
Okay,
this is the Battlehawks. This is like an abstract Battlehawk.
This is primarily for you, Reed, and I'll tell you why. I think this is their excuse to make sure caw makes sense because we've all criticized it.
Yeah.
It's not a bird. But in the actual post that St. Louis Battlehawks posted this logo, they actually have the meaning under it that is a armored bird.
Oh, okay. A bird.
So it's an armored bird, and it actually, I don't know if it's on their post somewhere. They have an explanation for this, and it's something to do with the Air Force.
Yeah, the Battlehawk is an armored bird. It's an armored mechanical bird. That's what the Battlehawk is. It's an armored mechanical bird. I saw that St. Louis, their video where they were showing like, hey, draw our logo. And this looks like they just took one of the Battlehawks players. They drew the logo. I'm like, oh, that is the one we're using as the alternate. This does not make sense to me of any kind.
No, it doesn't make much sense to me. And in all honesty, it does look like a form of the Air Force Falcons football team, like some version they've had at one point, because they do insane amount of different things at the academy for the Falcons. I mean, they've had all types of logos, and that looks like that. And the color scheme's even almost the same for the teams.
Yeah. All right, let's get out here. All right, this one, again, like design language here. I don't get what, like, this isn't from the same workbook. This is very military grade, St. Louis. It's just a stylized St. Louis, but is it STI dot, or is it, like, I get that's supposed to be an L, but it looks like STI, period.
Yeah, it does. And that's the other one that they did on their thing, explain that it is military format and it is paying homage to the Air Force in this font. So I get it, but I guess we can all say it's better than the STL with the arch that's on the jersey.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it looks fine on the shirt. I mean, it looks more like St. Louis, and I get you cheat the S on the other side, so it's supposed to look like an L, but it does look like an STI, period, just to be, I mean, you got to point these out. I mean, I don't think the shirts look terrible, but this one is pretty snooze. This one we liked before. I think we like it again. This is a callback to clearly the Las Vegas Outlaws, their branding back in 2001. Do you have anything else on this one?
No, I agree, and I can't see it on here, but I have my Las Vegas Outlaws helmet up there that has the LV, and I mean, I showed it on my show, and I'm like, yeah, it's very similar, and I like the color scheme of it. It just works. The only thing that gets me is this is the first thing they've actually put LV on, because they kind of they originally announced they were going to be in Las Vegas, and then when they announced the Vegas Vipers, they have not said the Las Vegas Vipers. So
the Vegas Vipers.
This is what I think this was to really throw back to those 2001 fans of Vegas to try to swoop them in of like, hey, we kind of are giving you a bit of the Outlaws.
Yeah, no, it's the Vegas Vipers. I think we really like that alliteration. This is a better logo. Make no mistake about it. The Las Vegas
100%.
alternate logo, 100% better than this. It's got like weird shading on it. I mean, I don't know. It's blocked.
I don't know if there's like snake scales on the sides. So like on the side of the L and the V, are those supposed to be like snake scales? Because that's what I kind of am seeing with the red and black there.
A little bit like, again. So we have block, flat, font, 3D, drop shadow, diagonal, pointed.
There's everything.
Thing. I mean, it just. I get every team has their own personalities, and so when we're launching, I mean, we can't equate like the Cleveland Browns now to the Seahawks, and like, okay, we're all trying to fit in the NFL, but we have a chance here with 8 teams to kind of come out the gate and have all this. This is saving the best for last. We're like, was New Orleans supposed to be a city? Like, did I miss when like Mike Mitchell, like, well, actually it was going to be down in New Orleans? Like, I have never heard of a fleur-de-lis ever anywhere in Vegas.
No, and again, I did research before I came on here, and this afternoon, I cannot find one thing relating to any of the hotels in Vegas, anything around Cashman or Allegiant, because who knows how long ago this was created. But I mean, I remember when I think it was Mark Perry with XFL News Hub posted this, that they found it on the trademark site. Maybe it was you too. I'm like, wait, are we getting what is going on? And then I'm like, wait a second, that's Vegas. It's got to be Vegas. The only thing I can see out of this is it looks like something to do with a playing card, like a Joker playing card type thing.
Yeah, I mean, is it supposed is it supposed to be like a spade in cards like that? That to me is the closest we get to it, but it doesn't even feel like it's even. I will say now, for Reed complaining before, at least this has the same design language as this with we have the drop shadow and the rays and it kind of looks 3D and we have weird angles like that. Okay, this is at least in the same design book here. We have the football in there. I just don't know. I was talking with listener Max about this and he's like, well, it's Vegas, like casinos. I go, I've been in Vegas a dozen times. Like I've never seen it. I've never seen a fleur-de-lis anywhere in any casino there.
No, I haven't either, and I call Vegas that's why I've been so obsessed with Vegas. It's like my second home. My family was stationed there in the military. I grew up practically in Vegas too, and I even showed my aunt and uncle this, who lived in Vegas for many years, went to many of the casino openings, Paris and all them, and they're like, that doesn't even make sense. And everyone I've shown this to is like, when did they get a New Orleans team? Or it's the other part to that was a lot of people said this was actually part of the St. Louis flag for the city.
They're just repurposing it. I just I don't want to get into it right now, but like, spoiler alert, like the history of the fleur-de-lis is not a wonderful history of our American time. So like, I think like the Saints kind of have that now, and that's part of their branding, and like it's kind of been grandfathered in. But like the fleur-de-lis as a whole is not a wonderful history of what that means and kind of what happened with all that. So I just would not. I don't know. I just would not use any of that.
I would rather just have the LV on that shirt and move forward. Like, unless they're going to explain it and there is something really behind it that we're all missing, fine. But explain it when you post it, because at least with STL and the Battle Hawk, they kind of explained it on there, but Vegas, not a thing. And I'm like, this is the most random thing I've ever seen.
Last thing for me today, we don't think we need to go more than 30 minutes on the alt logos. I really appreciate it. But like, if we look on here, so these are the secondary logo shirts. So Renegades, they still have their original R. DC, because it's got the main logo, right? It's got the main logo and then the secondary logo in there. Mm-hmm. So like, do we just give up on the other one? Like, why did the Renegades not get? If we're going to incorporate this in here, why? Okay, the Houston, that's still the original one. Like, I just don't get why half-assing that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Because the Renegades don't have it, the Roughnecks don't have it, and the Guardians don't have it. Like, I just don't get why not just do all for both. I don't understand.
Yeah, do 3 per team and use them in different scenarios. Like I said, with DC, you have banners outside Audi Field or whatnot that have that hanging there, like, hey, this is DC. But no, there's some that have them, some that don't, and I don't know if there's copyright or trademark issues that they came across the other things they were doing that they just couldn't get them approved yet, and we'll see them next year. I don't know. It was baffling me when these all released. I'm like, why does some have it and some don't?
Well, Brandon, I appreciate you hopping on. Brandon is great. Brandon kind of does like breaking news videos all the time on his channel. Hey, like the schedule's coming out or this is going on. I think that's very valuable. And then obviously you get kind of your Markcast fix every Friday with kind of the news of the week. But I appreciate that, Brandon. It works very hard on building that channel. I think you're doing a good job with that. So appreciate that. Anything else before I let you go?
Nope, that is it. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. We'll see. Well, I got to catch up with the Vipers game here sometime soon. Make it down to Vegas.
Definitely.
Well, we're back here. We made it. We were USFL season 1. Paul Reeths wrote us through the whole time. USFL historian with OurSports Central. We're back. We have USFL season 2 scheduling. Did you ever think we would make it here?
With Fox involved, I thought that there was actually a pretty good shot. It's nice when there's money behind the leagues.
Yeah, so we have the season 2 here, and we're gonna talk through it all today, kind of get some thoughts and everything else. So we pulled this up on here. We have the two, and then we have a more in-depth text one that I think is a little bit easier to run through. Obviously, we'll talk about where the XFL and the USFL intersect and all of that near the end of the XFL season. What do you make of the USFL season 2 schedule, Paul?
It's good to see this year a complete season schedule. If you remember last year, they really delineated the first couple of weeks, and then it was kind of a week-to-week setting of the schedule where they would do it maybe a couple weeks in advance. So it is good to see an entire schedule. I see more consistent time slots. Almost, I think everything's on Saturday and Sunday. And so I think the league has taken some good steps this year with the schedule.
Yeah, if you remember, and for new listeners, if you're getting in USFL season 2, they tried to kind of use like a flex schedule where they're like, well, we're going to put whatever the games, we're only going to announce it 2 weeks out or whatever, 1 or 2 weeks out. And it always felt like they were going to utilize that more to, counteract like other programming or kind of put things in the best slots. And I never felt like they used it. It just felt like people didn't know when the games were going to be. So you're happy to see a more consistent schedule this time.
And it's kind of difficult to see where they would have used that. It's it's not the same as the NFL where you can say Aaron Rodgers is going to be on Sunday Night Football now or anything like that. And even some of the late season matchups with playoff implications by week 10 that didn't even really matter. So I think setting the schedule early on and having those a little bit more of consistency with the windows is going to benefit the league.
I'm surprised, and it helps having it all in the text or graphics. And they posted all those videos. I don't know if you saw those; they were cute, with like SpongeBob like driving the showboat. I don't know if you saw any of that on Twitter, but seeing it all in text here, I have been very critical of the XFL schedule. I don't like the Thursday games. I think we have a Friday game. I think there's a Monday game in there. Seeing all Saturday, Sunday, the first couple are going to be on Fox. I think the Sunday, the one with the Michigan Panthers, the Gamblers, is going to be on NBC. What do you make of, is that Fox flexing their muscle? Hey, we are actually able to kind of program these where we want them, where the XFL is kind of having to take what they get?
I think that's probably a lot of what's going on. And last year, I think with the first year of the league, Fox, NBC may have had some more commitments that they kind of forced their hand on maybe some of the scheduling, because the stadium situation was really kind of ideal for Fox last year with everything in Birmingham. They had the run of the place for the entire season. And then you could always go over to the other field if they would have absolutely needed a specific slot. So I think this is more of maybe the fewer commitments. They were able to make room for the USFL in the spots that they wanted the USFL this year. And unfortunately, I think you do see that a little bit in some cases with the XFL schedule, where they have to take the windows that are left.
Are you, and we're obviously doing the USFL breakdown, are you bullish on the XFL schedule? Are you less bullish, just in general?
What I'm most interested in seeing is ratings for both leagues because of the different seasons, because the XFL will get the jump right after the Super Bowl here. And then we have to wait until tax day, well, what would normally be tax day, for the USFL season to kick off. And so not only what do the ratings start at, but how do they hold throughout the season for each league? I think that will be very telling as to when we might see these leagues, if they do have a future, where they settle.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see, and obviously the basing that, where you have the FX with, the XFL and like that cable versus if do we get some of these games back on Peacock or FS1 or FS2? Like you said, talking on here, and it so is helpful for me to see this all laid out. A lot of 7:00 games. You have a lot of the 3:00, more standard. We're getting like a 9 p.m. one there in week 7 on a Saturday. that's fine. These are all Eastern times, but it seems to me like they're trying to hit more, like you said, consistency and also more primetime viewing, getting some of those late games. Don't have too many early windows. We got the 12:30 on Saturday, 12 the first weekend, but we're trying to kind of mix the early games with the later. Us here on the West Coast, we're used to getting up for 10 a.m. football.
Right. And I do think that this was an issue that we touched on a couple of times last year, was that the lack of consistency in the schedule likely affected the ratings. You had even people who did want to tune in, those who weren't going to find it just by accident, but who were looking for the games, were like, hey, wait a minute, when is the Saturday game on again this week? And so I think that consistency is going to help. And, I guess the big thing that I see with the schedule this year is kind of this continuous improvement that we're seeing out of the USFL. We're seeing it in their communications, and we're seeing it with the schedule, more consistency and the complete schedule before the season starts. So the USFL has done a really nice job of cleaning up some issues from year one.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. We're always the big hating on the USFL here on the Markcast, but you give them high marks here in the offseason and kind of shoring up some things.
Some of the things that struck me from last year, including the communications. If you remember, communications at this point for the USFL were kind of minimal. We kind of got right up a couple months before the season started, before they confirmed Birmingham. And the schedule is always kind of flex. All the communications were being done through Fox-controlled outlet like Colin Cowherd. And now you're seeing more of a reach out with communications, more press releases that are for everybody. And I think we've seen some of the local media start to pick up on those things more than they did last year. So I do give the league high marks for improving things year to year.
In terms of, are you a fan of the Pittsburgh Maulers rebrand?
I am a traditionalist. As you introduced me to begin with, I'm a USFL historian, so I always think purple and orange with the Maulers. I understand where they're coming from, but I do like the traditional Maulers colors.
What do you make of the Canton Hub? We had Ed Balint on here as well talking. He works for the Canton repository about all this. What do you make of them utilizing Canton in the Hall of Fame to have two of the teams there?
It brings them closer to their home markets. It's an incremental step. The league, in terms of the hubs, I think that's another area where we've seen the league improve. Of course, everything was in Birmingham up until the playoffs last year. Now we have 4 hubs, 3 of them home markets, one that's not terribly far away from a home market. So call it 3.5 teams that are in home markets now. Maybe a little bit bigger step than I thought the league would take in year 2. So again, another area where year to year the league has improved. Canton, it could be a fun market. When you look at it and you look at what Birmingham had to do last year, 40 games. You had to try to drum up 40. Canton's not going to have to do that. So I'm hopeful that they can get, a representative crowd in there most of the time to give some good ambiance to the games.
I'm really curious, just in terms of walk-up people at, Canton, and in terms of, we don't need to have, Pittsburgh fans there. We don't need to have Jersey fans there. We can have, just regular people there. Does that, in terms of entice you in terms of just having the casual fans out there?
I think it's always better when you have the rabid home fans there, when you have people in Maulers gear and Generals gear who are actively, cheering for players. Hopefully this helps some family situations where family and friends can make a few more games. That's always fun to see. So I think the league, I think they have this Canton hub, and I think there can be some cool things that come out of it. Ideally, you'd want teams in their home markets, but it's an incremental step in that direction. I think almost certainly it'll look better than what we saw in Birmingham, a lot of last year, and that's definitely not to throw Birmingham under the bus in any way. They had 40 games in that market last year. That is a lot. That is a big ask of the city.
So I'm looking on here. I thought I was having a stroke for a minute because we have week 2 Sunday. We have Panthers at Stars in Canton. Stars are in Michigan. Why is it Panthers at Stars in Canton?
That one stuck out to me as well. Kind of this random Canton game. And you look at that and you've got a 12-7 situation there. So they're able to do both games in one hub. It could be as even a stadium issue with Ford Field, and it was a kind of a compromised place.
Because I really did. I just got done with an interview, and I really thought if I've said the wrong 2 teams at one of these hubs, I'm really going to be lambasted here. But yeah, it seems weird that maybe we'll get another Trace Atkin concert there week 2, filling in the gap from 12 to 7. We'll have another concert.
Could be. And I think that there are some fun things that they can do to really make that a little bit more of a fun destination. The game is the event that's happening there. Not that you have to be attached to either team, but something fun to do in the area.
I did before I counted up. I think it's 9 Canton weekend dates that are being used. Some of them with double headers, some of them single that way. Weird to me that Canton isn't used every week. I don't know if we have scheduling things in the spring with the Hall of Fame Stadium there. Obviously Birmingham, Memphis, and Detroit on there. Do you make anything of the 4 hubs? I know there's like a lot of weird, like so-and-so travels 4 weeks in a row or all that stuff. In terms of just how it's laid out, do you think it's generally fair travel across the board here with the 8 teams?
I think so. You have to take into account that they had to work with these venues, and in a place like Detroit, that's probably not super easy all the time. That there are some conflicts. Memphis as well. So, I think you do the best you can with scheduling, and I think they did the best that they could with scheduling. And even if some of it gets a little wonky sometimes, they don't have the control over the venues that the NFL does, for instance. So sometimes you have to do what you can, and you also need to hit your broadcast windows. So I think a lot of things go into making the schedule. So I feel pretty good about it.
In terms of, and this is interesting, I want to give credit here, Brandon here with the comeback period, put together this little cheat sheet because we've always been talking about the overlap and the XFL starting, but they're going into it. When is the USFL kicking off in the championship? Starting on April 15th, going all the way up through the championship game. We see, Vipers or Roughnecks 12:30. Not a lot of like immediately competing. Guardians, Brahmas, General Stallions 7:30 on there. As we get later on, looking at this here, any thoughts on how these leagues? Is there going to be enough eyeballs? Do you see people channel flipping? Do we have a alt football red zone where we've got multiple games on at the same time?
I think some of it's going to be tremendous fun. I mean, you look at that April 23rd where you have 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. Whoever thought in the alt football world that we'd have 4 games spanning almost the length of the day like that? To me, again, just a cornucopia of riches that we're about to hit starting next week. With all the alt football. One thing that we don't have represented here because it's not known is what games are going to be on Peacock, for instance. Those aren't going to be as big a draws as those that are on a network. So that might mitigate some of it too, but it does look kind of like minimal headbutting through most of the season.
I can't imagine here, and this is read the XFL homer, but I cannot imagine, the XFL semifinal game on April 29th, showboats at Generals. And we'll see. I mean, we'll see, but I would like to, I think the XFL is definitely benefiting from, if the gameplay is good, much more meaningful games in that time period. Seems to be, I don't know, feels more impactful here than I think we thought originally it was going to be, we're going to have 1 or 2 dates here that we're going to overlap. It does feel more real when you have them all laid out like this.
When you have them all laid out, a lot of the overlap, especially early, is with the kind of noon or 12:30 games. And then they really spread out a little bit until you get to the playoffs. You have a couple of you have a semifinal at 7:00 on April 29th in the XFL, and then a USFL game at the same time. You have an hour offset where the XFL beats them to the field by an hour the next day, and then the championship, the XFL championship on May 13th, will be an hour earlier start than the USFL game. I imagine that will give the XFL a likely leg up on those dates. But otherwise, it probably could have been a lot more head-to-head than what we're seeing here.
Do you sense that they, and like we talked before, I don't even know if they have the capacity to say, hey, we want to schedule. I mean, sometimes you just have to take either the stadium windows, the TV windows, or both that you're given.
Right. And by that time, I mean, the thought is that the XFL will have found kind of its base audience, and that base audience is almost surely going to follow it through the last couple of weeks and then into the playoffs. So the XFL is going to have a leg up just from starting earlier. So it could be that the USFL worked some of those windows to minimize the overlap. And then again, maybe they just took what they had to with their broadcast windows and stadium availability.
We've lived through USFL season 1. We've seen the base ratings. There's about 1.1 to 1.3 million that are going to tune in. Obviously, the championship did better. The cable did worse. Kickoff did better, but kind of that base 1.1 to whatever. Does having the XFL name, does that push it above? Is XFL lucky to hit where it hits? Where do you see the ratings for the XFL here?
That it is a little bit tough. I mean, the USFL had the benefit of Fox and NBC, not just their properties, but Fox proper. These games were on an NBC proper to start off with. That's important. The brand and the power of ESPN can definitely stand right up to them. So, which one gives you a little bit more? This is 2023, and the power of the broadcast networks aren't what they were 20 years ago. ESPN is, the worldwide leader in sports. Does that alone give the XFL a little bit of a leg up? And then what about the season time? That might be more meaningful than anything else. If the XFL starts with good numbers and is able to maintain them for 2 to 4 weeks, does the USFL then look at its time of season, or is this where the networks want the games for their own purposes? And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch how it all plays out.
I think that's really actually interesting how you phrase that and I'm sure I'll get whatever criticism, whatever, like, it seems like XFL, we want to build this into whatever this is going to be, right? As big as, I don't know if it's the number 6 sport in the world or if, it ends up being a feeder system to the NFL. It seems to me, it always has. Fox wants USFL to fill programming when they don't have other stuff to air in the spring. Do you agree or disagree with me on that? And then does that then base, like you said, maybe the USFL hits whatever window that is, and they say, man, we're good here for 10 years because all we need to do is hit X number of people and we're riding high.
And, as I mentioned, the power of the broadcast networks has declined so much, but one thing that still brings eyeballs on broadcast networks is live sports. The networks shell out a lot of money for rights for these live sports. And so Fox, I think, rightly took a look at that and said, hey, what if we can develop our own property where we're drawing those eyeballs, but without shelling out a lot for rights fees? We have total control on when they play. They're never going to walk away from us. We're not going to develop something and then see NBC or ABC snatch it away, for instance. That might make Fox a little bit more patient with this. And broadcast networks, all TV networks are not known for patience. They'll cancel things at the drop of a hat. Look at what NBC did with the original XFL. But Fox, I think, has taken a little bit more of a patient approach because of this long-term view of what benefits our network, live sports, and how can we do this economically, and that's not shelling out tons of rights payments. So they are really, as TV products go, two very different animals.
I'm just looking on here. XFL, yeah, the XFL 01 championship game earned a 9.5 rating. 14 million watched the opening game of the XFL 21. So, I mean, people poo-poo XFL 01. I know it was a different time and streaming and cable cutting and all that stuff. Like, I mean, 14 million people, I mean, time and place, but I mean, the XFL was doing okay. It just was a different, like you said, a different time frame where expectations were a lot higher than they are right now.
Expectations were absolutely a lot higher. Did Fox draw 14 million over the course of the season? I mean, you look at that opening number, and it was, large. It dropped pretty drastically. I think it dropped maybe in half by week 2. And then kept sliding until they actually hit, all-time low broadcast numbers later in the season. But the expectations of you at a time when Monday Night Football was having a hard time staying on broadcast television on ABC, you were expecting minor league football in the off season to carry numbers on network television. That was too much to ask of the original XFL. McMahon and that side of the equation were fully on board for another season. It was when NBC pulled out on that whole deal that the league couldn't keep going forward. As you said, it just illustrates the different time, even over the course of just over 2 decades, how much the expectations have changed on network television. Now, if you're doing a 1 million, 1.5, hey, this thing is really going gangbusters here. It's renewed.
It's like when they show, was it Daniel Jones's quarterback stats against like Dak Prescott or something? Like one is garbage quarterback and one is, and like they're kind of the same. Like it all depends on what glass you view this from. But this really is an interesting conversation, just because, like you said, there's a lot of like Rock and Danny, and we only care about this. They only want this as another brand for them, and they got zero, whatever. But then, like I said, you look at the XFL or the USFL with Fox, and it's programming. Like, I don't know, maybe neither of these leagues is exactly what, the fans of these leagues want them to view them the same as the owners are kind of looking at them.
Yeah. And if you think that either of these entities is going to develop something that's eventually going to compete with the NFL, I think that you're going to be grossly disappointed. If you want to see something that is entertaining, that is sports entertainment, if you enjoy the stories of the guys who are working hard and trying to take the next step, or even just going out there and having fun, you're going to enjoy these leagues. That's what you can enjoy. And with all of these leagues, it's good not to look too far to the future. Let Fox, let The Rock and Danny Garcia worry about that. Enjoy it while it's in front of you.
A couple more here. I'll let you go. Thank you very much for your time today. We're a week away. As this airs, a week away from XFL kickoff. Would you have liked to have seen more national media exposure at this point?
Absolutely. And that's maybe the downside of kicking off right after the Super Bowl, is that you're trying to do that at a point where when you're competing almost with the NFL and even coming off bowl season for the colleges, it's a little bit tougher to draw some attention at that point of the year. So maybe that's a little bit of what we've seen. You do get the feeling that the XFL has scrambled a little bit here toward the end, just with naming the Vegas stadium, getting the schedule together, and shoring up, some of those things. It does seem to have come together, but it did look a little bit rushed toward the end. And I think that we saw that a little bit in their communications as well, in that they could probably be doing a better job of just making sure people know who's on these teams, making sure people know when the games are, and just doing all of those things, keeping especially local media in the loop.
It's hard, and I know they're doing stuff, and I even saw Sal Cannella, I think, was on today. I think he tweeted out, he was on something, and they're doing that. I think the teams right now, the social people are doing a tremendous job in the content, and we have the alt logos today, and that's a whole nother discussion. Now we have alternative XFL team logos, all these things. But like, if I'm not following the XFL on Twitter, like, I just don't know where I'm getting this from right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And your point is, I think, dead on, is that social media is great, and it is a piece of the puzzle. But really, you're preaching to the choir. You're talking to people who have already kind of shown an interest in your product. What you need is to be in the local newspaper and on local radio spots, and just kind of hitting people from a lot of different angles, so that they can't forget that the Guardians are in Orlando. They can't forget when that first game is. They can't forget what the post-game concert is, or whatever special event you have for that game. You need to hit them from different angles, and not just talk to the people who've already shown an interest. That won't be enough. It's constantly using your communications to earn free advertising, to hit people from all different angles when they're in their car listening to the radio, or just flipping through the channels when they tune in their local news at night. And I think that's something that the USFL, I think, improved a little bit on this year, and something that the XFL really should keep in mind as they go through the rest of the season.
Here's the $7 million question for you before I let you go. Super Bowl airs next, I guess this Sunday now, right? Super Bowl airs this Sunday. The $7 million per 30-second ad. I think the report came out. It's whatever. I'm not counting if Fox, who is airing the Super Bowl, if they get their little 5-second interstitial, like USFL on Fox coming. Like, I'm talking an ad. I'm talking a 30-second ad. Do we see an XFL ad? Do we see a USFL ad? Both, neither at the Super Bowl. And I'm going to poll the audience as well.
I would not be shocked to see something on the USFL. I would be a little bit more shocked to see something on the XFL.
You think Fox foregoes $7 million for a 30-second ad to air USFL?
I don't know if we'll see a full 30 on it.
Well, that's the question. I mean, like I said, I'm not counting like I'm talking 30, like the one we saw with them making fun of the Hollywood and the Memphis Showboat Saloon or whatever that was.
Yeah, we'll see. That they could play it right up to game time and have something during the pregame, maybe something postgame. When I think that those ad rates get adjusted a little bit.
Okay, so Paul's in on pregame that's good, because we did it last week, and because Andy Murray asked me that, and I almost stopped me dead in my tracks. I thought, well, there's no way that they do that. And he's like, they have to. It's on Fox. I'm like, I don't see them like for me, I'm freelance. I could go out and work for money. I could sit at home, or like I could go out and work for free. I'm certainly not going to go out and work for free. I'm either going to sit at home, or I don't know. Just be curious. Paul, anything else before I let you go? I appreciate it.
Buckle up. We're starting how many weeks here of alt football that's going to take us all the way through the Grey Cup. When was the last time we had this? It's been decades since the original USFL, 1985, played its last championship game, right before NFL training camps. That's as close as we've been able to get to this. Yeah, it's going to be fun. So just enjoy what's in front of you right now.
You need to go on Twitter. You need to be more on Twitter, like telling people to calm down and tell people to be happy. I think the world would be a better place if Paul Reeths was on there. Hey guys, like, just appreciate what we have.
And it's unprecedented, really, what we're seeing here. We're seeing two leagues, both of which I think stand a pretty good chance of making it through the season. Playing not quite back-to-back seasons, but just a couple of weeks of overlap. One's going to kind of go right into the next one. And then, if you really want to keep watching the alt football, there's a CFL that will be kind of really gearing up mid to late season by the time they're done. So it's going to be a blast.
It's going to be good. Paul Reeths, OurSports Central, and the USFL historian. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for having me on, Reed.
Well, we talked at the Detroit Hub a couple weeks ago. Now we have Ed Balint on here from the Canton Repository. We're talking all things USFL in Canton, Tom Benson, Hall of Fame, all the rest. Ed, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing really good. How are you? Lovely day here in Ohio. A little overcast, but it's pretty unseasonably warm. I think in the 50s, getting close to 60.
Well, that's good. So, last year, we tracked in USFL season 1 and the kickoff all the way up through, playoffs. And then obviously we had the championship game in Canton. This year, trying to get these hubs, couldn't get anywhere for Pittsburgh or New Jersey. So we end up, we're using the Canton, which I thought made sense all along, using that as one of the hubs. We're familiar with that space. What overall thoughts from you, first off, about the Canton hosting 2 of the teams of 4 here for season 2 of the USFL?
Yeah, I was really pleased with that. Just a quick little background. I'm 52 years old, so I go back to the original USFL when I was in middle school, and I was a big fan of that. Remember watching Steve Youngs and Doug Flutie's of the world. So when the USFL was first announced to play the playoff games and the championship last season, I thought that was great. And then the fact that they're increasing the presence, I think that's a good thing. I think it makes sense. And for one, apparently things went well enough with the USFL and the Hall of Fame Village at Tom Benson Stadium to not only give it another try, but to increase the presence here. And I think it's natural. As all the football fans know, the birthplace of professional football is considered Canton, the cradle, and that led to what's the NFL today, and then the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which honors the greatest players in the history of the NFL, is in Canton. In fact, right next to Tom Benson Stadium there. So I think it's a really, really good fit.
Well, to me, it always made sense. I know we don't have a Canton team. We're calling it, Greater Pittsburgh, whatever, with the Maulers. But, to me, as opposed to trying to attract people to go to like Protective Stadium in Birmingham or, Legion Field when they were using that last year, like we have foot traffic at Canton all the time. We have foot traffic at the Hall of Fame all the time. You can advertise, hey, it's like Vegas, right? Hey, while you're here, is that how that works there? I mean, talk about just the number of people going through the Hall of Fame Stadium there, or the Hall of Fame exhibit at the Hall of Fame Stadium, and kind of how that looks and feels for people going there.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is that as far as I know, the attendance figures of the Pro Football Hall of Fame have always been kind of a closely guarded secret and something that you don't release. And it certainly shouldn't be because they are low, but maybe they don't want to track from 10 years ago, 20 years ago to today. But obviously it's not only the premier tourist attraction in Canton and Stark County, Ohio, but certainly one in the region. You have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, and then you have Cedar Point up there by Sandusky, Ohio. But the Pro Football Hall of Fame, especially in a sports sense, is as big as it gets. And people come from all over for that. I know when I've been there for assignments, I've been there just for pleasure. You'll see license plates from all over the country. When I've interviewed people, that's a big deal. They make that sometimes part of a cross-country trip. They make it just a singular mission to go there. So it brings in a lot of foot traffic, as you mentioned, not only local, but regionally and outside the state. And I think that's another thing that makes sense or will go together, that the Birmingham Stadium, no disrespect to that, but from what I could tell from television, it seemed like, more of a college level type of stadium. And of course, Ford Field, where the Detroit team, where the Michigan Panthers will play, that's where the Lions play. So that's NFL caliber. But this is kind of a miniature NFL stadium. It has modern accommodations. It's had big concerts there, like Journey. Zach Brown's going to be there this summer. You've had Dave Chappelle, comedian, perform there this past summer. And then the Hall of Fame Village also has like a kind of a recreation area for kids with zip lines, with a Ferris wheel. It's going to have a Don Shula restaurant. It's going to have a brewery there. It's going to have a pizza place, a Build-A-Bear, Starbucks. So not only do I think that people, if they come to the game, they can make a day out of it, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame will be maybe an extra inducement to go. But the Hall of Fame Village, and it's growing. You have attractions that are under construction, a water park's being constructed, football themed, a hotel football theme. Those are like a year or two away from completion, but it's certainly something where there's shovels in the ground and it's going to happen. So yeah, I think that people will be coming because of the offerings there, and the USFL hopefully could tie in with that.
Because obviously we have the Hall of Fame game and things like that with the NFL. I mean, in terms of general usage of that stadium, besides now USFL taking part, I mean, what is the general purpose of that alongside the Hall of Fame? That's why I've never gotten there.
Yeah. Now, if I'm sketching any of the details, not being a sports writer, being an entertainment writer, covering arts and music for the newspaper, if I'm off on any of that, my apologies. But certainly both high school and local college games are played there. You know, people who are familiar with Ohio football, Canton McKinley and the Massillon Tigers, McKinley Bulldogs, those are, you know, two very well-known football programs that produced a lot of NFL players, and the rivalry is really rich in history. So Canton McKinley High School is right next to that stadium where the USFL games will be played. So you have games there. Not only that regular season, but you have the high school football playoffs. So the best high school teams in the state, that's where they go to play their playoff games in at least the championship round. And they rotate, I think, between Ohio State, where the Buckeyes play, as they call it, the horseshoe, and then the alternate. I don't know if that's like every other year, but it does come, and the high school games are played there. In addition to that, you have the Black College Classic. It's the Black College Football Hall of Fame, and you have the historically Black colleges, and they'll have a game there every year. It's usually just, you know, from memory, it's kind of like a September, maybe August, September type of event. Besides that, I mentioned some rock concerts they'll have at different times. And I think that the Hall of Fame Village, which doesn't own the stadium, but certainly uses it, and the Hall of Fame Village is separate from the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but, you know, they're working together. But I do know that they're always trying to bring in more events and trying to get different uses. So it's not like that stadium just, you know, sits idle until the Hall of Fame game during the pro football enshrinement. Not at all.
What did you make of the buzz for, the USFL there last year?
Yeah. Now, I could speak to that a little bit because I had done some reporting, talking to both some local fans and especially some fans coming from outside the area, including some media members and people who do some podcasts and shows like you do. But I wasn't there to attend them. I was actually on vacation. I was kind of bummed because I wanted to see especially the championship. Hopefully I can make it there this year. But I'll be honest, it's a hard thing to gauge. And I didn't sense like a tremendous buzz or excitement locally. Now, all of that kind of, from what I recall, was announced kind of late in the game. You didn't have like the regular season games that you have this year. So I think I sense there's going to be more interest and anticipation having two teams that are based there, two franchises building up to the playoffs, at least one playoff game, the North Division, and then to the championship. But I think some people, it was kind of like a wait and see, and some people weren't sure about it. But certainly through social media, talk with some people in the community, they thought it was cool that a professional football league was there. It was affordable. They could take their family. They had like country music performer Trace Atkins there. And that was right in our backyard. So I think there's going to be a little bit more anticipation this year.
I was filming weddings that weekend. Had a lot of animosity that Reed didn't make it out for the championship game. I said, I got 4 weddings this weekend, this 4th of July weekend. So yeah. This year we're there, you do the press conference, everyone's there, Fox, everyone, all the big names. What did you make of the sense and buzz now this time around, with the announcement now moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's more, and that's kind of what I based my previous comments on, being more anticipation. Now, when I talked about last season, there wasn't maybe as much buzz. There was a decent attendance. I couldn't give you figures, but I did, watch the championship game on television, and there were certainly fans there as opposed to like the Birmingham games when I would turn those on television and so many seats would be empty. Now, we both know Birmingham was used by all the teams, so that was a challenge to attract fans from the other markets. But I know that especially the people who are like in tourism and marketing, the people with the Visitors Bureau in Stark County, local officials, people who want to bring more business not only the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but to the hotels and restaurants, that there's some excitement there. And they feel like there's definitely an opportunity there with more presence, with what is it, several games being played by the New Jersey Generals and the Pittsburgh Maulers this year. So I think there's a lot of optimism. And the fact that the USFL made a commitment not only to return one of the playoff games in the championship. I almost said Super Bowl, my mistake, I guess, because that's the week we're in here. But I think the commitment of a second season has some of the local officials feeling really good about things.
So if you're looking on here, and I have the schedule up because we're doing the breakdown as well. Doubleheader on April 23rd. That's week 2. We return week 4 and do a doubleheader. And then we return week 7 and do Saturday, Sunday. So that's 4 dates, 5 week 8, both of week 8. So 6. So it looks like 7, 8, 9 weekend dates will be used from the teams. Just thoughts on that spread out and basically influxing in 9 additional events that didn't exist previously into the Hall of Fame. Like you said, they're always trying to find new things, concerts, everything else to come in there.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any conflicts because the Pro Football Hall of Fame Enshrinement Festival, that's Canton's Super Bowl. That's their big event since the Hall of Fame has existed since the 60s. There's parades. There's the big concert. There's the enshrinement. There's different dinners and things. It's like almost a week long worth of events. That's in August. So early August, there's not going to be any issues there. And I think that was one of the things that the Hall of Fame Village folks who partner with the USFL on this is the fact that they're going to have, permanent tenants there for a while. They're going to have the stadium booked. Now, as far as the public and attendance and so forth, I'm going to be curious to see how that goes. I hope it's not like embarrassing where it's just a sprinkling of folks. Certainly not expecting a sellout. For sporting events, for football, I think that holds about 23,000 or so, roughly, somewhere in that vicinity. And what I'm hoping for and eager to see, and I'm curious about, are the promotions and the marketing. And I'm hoping that the USFL will do, like, just off the top of my head, like Daryl Johnston, since he's involved with the USFL, like a bobblehead day for him, or maybe even like Cavante Turpin, or some player who's in the league or something like that. Have a T-shirt day, have a $1 hot dog day, have some halftime entertainment and fireworks day or night, something along those lines. So I hope they try to be creative. I know they're economically, as far as finances go, we're not talking about Major League Baseball, the NBA, or the NFL here, but I would really like that. And one thing that's unfortunate is that even though they use the same logo, I believe, of the original USFL, and I love the retro helmets and jerseys for some of the teams, the Generals, the Panthers, it's too bad there's not like a formal relationship between the new and old USFL, because I doubt they'd be able to get Jim Kelly or someone like that, Steve Young, to come to a game and do the coin toss. But even Kevin Mack, who was an outstanding player for the Browns, who played in the USFL, or Gerald, Ice Cube McNeil, have like a Kevin Mack bobblehead day, have a Gerald McNeil day. I think the marketing opportunities would be great, with throwback jerseys, but I don't mean to digress too much. And apparently that's something that's not in the offering because of the legal issues.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, if you want to deep dive, if you have any time on your hands, we have many hours of deep dive with Trademark Warriors and all. We tracked the whole thing last summer. Fascinating, or I guess it was, whatever, before the kickoff, so what was that, winter, spring of last year. Fascinating listen there. But I mean, they're acknowledging them now. It is kind of murky that way, and I think we're working more towards that and showing those highlights and stuff. I think we saw the new commercial that came out. In terms of, I think a lot's been made. Okay, there's no Canton team, right? We got the Pittsburgh team, we got the Jersey team. But in terms of general people, like, okay, yes, we're going to have people in Canton that are following whatever, but you're getting a good swath of everyday America, right, going through the Hall of Fame. So does it matter as much? Like, there's not a Canton team because there's just so many more people there. You have the opportunity, like, hey, you like football, come. Like, what do you make of that? Trying to attract people, a general audience to the games.
Sure, and I see it two ways. One thing that stands out to any Canton area, Akron area, any Cleveland area sports fan is the fact that a Pittsburgh team is going to be playing its games in Canton. And Canton is Browns country. Now, granted, there are a decent number of Steelers fans around, partly because the younger generation has grown up with the Browns being so terrible. But it's certainly Browns country, and you're talking like an hour drive, roughly, maybe even a little less than that to get to a Browns game. So that's a little humorous. But with that said, yeah, I don't think it's a issue that the team's coming from Pittsburgh. It's a close drive, so some Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania folks should be coming here. And I think, again, the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the nice attractions you have there at the stadium, will be extra incentive. And I haven't seen ticket prices yet. I know last year they were very affordable for the playoffs. I know there's a $50 deposit, I think $25 per ticket to get season tickets, but I was poking around and I don't see what the prices are, but I'm guessing it's going to be an affordable type of ticket for a family, obviously way less than the NFL and NBA and things like that. And then if you throw in the museum and the village and the fact that it's such a nice stadium and you have these little attractions on the property there that, yeah, hopefully that'll work and get some people checking it out. Now, as far as the Hall of Fame goes, my understanding is there's no formal relationship between the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the USFL. Now, one issue there, and correct me if I'm wrong, since you're also well-versed on the XFL, but there's some type of relationship between the XFL and the NFL. XFL is another spring football league, going to be a competitor with the USFL. So because of that, I'm sure the Pro Football Hall of Fame, won't be like having a partnership, but I would hope that, maybe they could do like discounted tickets at the Pro Football Hall of Fame Museum. But even if they don't, I mean, when I say it's next door, it's next door. You could literally step out the front entrance, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I probably couldn't do it. But if you have maybe half the arm that Tom Brady does, you could throw a football from the entrance to the Hall of Fame to Tom Benson Stadium and probably make it.
Yeah, XFL, they're working with the NFL Alumni Academy, which is not exactly the NFL, the same way that, we're working with the Football Hall of Fame. All these leagues, I think, are kind of trying to we have these associations and it's like third party, whatever, through, trying to build up, and I get why they do that. Last question for you today. In terms of demos, we talked about this, and even if you go on the schedule here, fan friendly and all that kind of stuff. The Hall of Fame, are we getting more single guys going, checking it out? Are we getting families? Are we getting the mix? Like, what is the demo of people going to the Hall of Fame museum there?
Now, this isn't scientific, but
generally, yes.
Yeah, I've walked through there, and I get there a few times a year, usually for one assignment or another. And I would say it's mixed. Naturally, it's going to lean towards, the male demographic, but I've been surprised when I'm there. A lot of families and definitely, parents and their kids. And then I see family trips where you have uncles and aunts, you have grandparents, with the grandkids and things like that. And I see some couples there, and I see like some like grandmothers and some, gray-haired couples who once told me, we're doing like an RV trip, across the country. I think they told me it was a bucket list trip, and the Hall of Fame was on the bucket list. Now, as far as drawing people, and this was something I meant to say last time with my answer, I don't think you could have a better market for football. We know that Texas and Pennsylvania are two of the bigger football states in the country, also Florida. But Ohio certainly is one of them. In Northeast Ohio, the allegiance to the high school football teams is huge. The fandom for the Ohio State Buckeyes is off the charts. For the Browns, it's off the charts. And you have the teams both big and small at the high school market. So I think because of that, hopefully people will want to come and see professional football, knowing that, hey, maybe they'll see a former Ohio State player there. You might even see a high school player who made it to USFL, knowing that some of these guys might be in the NFL someday. That's been proven this season. I think people will be intrigued by that. And if you can combine that with the affordability of it, with the museum being there, I guess I'd put it this way. If this doesn't work, I don't know what would. I mean, honestly, having a stadium in downtown Detroit, Ford Field, that's not really apples and apples with what I'm talking about. That's hard to compete with. But when you're talking about the USFL not being the NFL, having limited resources, I can't think of a better opportunity to make it work than here in Canton.
Well, Ed, on that, I think that's a good point. We'll leave you today. Maybe we'll check in here during the season. I really appreciate it coming on here on the Markcast today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Well, I went and pulled my Philadelphia Stars jersey out of my closet here. We have Devin Gray, USFL with the Stars. That's my team. That's the team of the Markcast here headed into season 2. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm good. So we'll talk a little season 1 here, talk a little season 2. What are you at today, beginning of February here? What are you up to?
Right now, I'm just training for the season. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. So I've been training here since I've been a part of the Falcons. So right now, just grind mode right now. I train probably Monday through Saturday. And I train with the best trainer I know, Lily. And then I usually run routes or do something in the afternoons, like lift after, or I'll go run the hills after. So yeah, just pretty much preparing for the season right now, getting in shape and preparing my body the best I can.
For people that don't, non football players here listening, how challenging is it, this alt football and you're trying to do workouts, you're trying to get ready and be in shape, and how challenging is that?
I mean, I'm in such a routine now. I wouldn't even consider it challenge now, but the most challenging part is just staying consistent, really. Like, it's times where I don't want to wake up or I don't want to work out. I have a wife and a 2-year-old. They want to be around me. So just staying consistent, I would say the hard part, but I mean, the work is the work. It's already drilled in me. So I've been doing that for years on years now. So work is the work. It's just more about just staying consistent, making sure I'm able to go in every day, even on those days I don't feel like it.
What was season like one for season 1? I don't know if I said that. What was USFL season 1 like for you, and what was your experience?
I mean, it was really good. I didn't come in with a lot of high expectations, really. I know I came from the NFL, and I was like, I know it's a brand new league, but it actually ended up being really good. I know they made a lot of changes from the beginning to the end. Was night and day. So they were definitely all about the players. If we had an issue, they tried to do their best to fix it. So it was definitely a great league. I love all the expansions they made, all the changes they made in a short amount of time. And most importantly, just all the opportunities that all the players got just to be a part of the league and be on TV every weekend. So it was definitely very, very grateful and blessed for that opportunity.
Coming from the NFL and having that experience, and now we've obviously had the CBA and the union and trying to get you guys a little bit more in terms of taking care of. What does that mean to you as a player, knowing that work was done in the off season?
I mean, it's really cool. I actually got an opportunity. I was one of the player reps to actually be in there with Fox and some of our other union reps, and just being able to negotiate a deal, talk about some issues we had as players, but also understanding that it's a business and they got to be able to run their business as well. So it was definitely really cool just seeing that part of the game. I've always been a player, so just seeing kind of like on the back end and see everything going forward, and it was definitely a cool experience.
Do you feel like, in terms of having your experience in the past, that helped put you in that position to be a part of that, or how were you selected to be a part of that?
It was I actually got voted somehow. I don't know. I know we had a vote, but I didn't think I would get voted. So I was informed that I got voted to be our player rep, and I accepted it, which I was kind of hesitant at first, but then, I figure I could bring in good value because I've been a part of the NFL and I played in the spring league. So I have a decent amount of experience, and And I know what it's like, that a lot of the players, like a lot of even my teammates talk to me about a lot of things. So I know a lot of guys was asking me questions and stuff already. So I figured I could easily fill in that role and voice for what the players would like to the league. So it was definitely very cool.
Yeah, because you spent time right with the Generals as well, right, back in the spring league.
Yeah, I was in the spring league for about 4 or 5 games, and then I left early to go to the Ravens. But I definitely was part of the spring league for a little bit.
I got a pile here of when that all went down. I got a pile here we're giving away soon of all the old. We got Blues and Generals and stuff. One of the storage units like went default or whatever, and so I have like a big pile of them. We're going to be giving away soon. So
Throwbacks right there.
I look at it every day in my office here. A pile of Generals, Blues. I don't think we have any Alphas, but we have. I think it was like the 2021 of that. In terms of the Stars, obviously deep run. What was the season like for you from on the field of play?
I mean, it was really cool. Just we coming in. I know a few guys, like I said, from the spring league. I had one of my former Falcons teammates on there, and some of the guys I trained with. But coming in, not really knowing anybody as a team, having a short training camp, only 3 weeks, and just seeing where we were to start the season to where we ended the season, it was crazy. It was like a total transformation, how fast our chemistry formed. And it was it was really cool. It was a lot different than the NFL, where you spend a whole off season with your team. You spend OTAs, you spend basically 5 weeks of training camp, and just to see where we were to start the season to where we finished was a really cool experience.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want to get you in trouble here, but feel free to answer that. We watched United by Football, right? We had Brian Scott beginning, obviously quarterback, and it got hurt, and Case came in. I talk with Brian, and we're friendly as well. When they had the episode of the United by Football where it was like he had the house meeting and he had everybody over there, like how accurate depiction was that? And like I just always curious as someone that was kind of like in that going on, like what was it like kind of those early couple weeks there with the Stars?
I mean, it was cool. We actually forgot that the cameras were rolling anyway. We didn't even realize until after, but it wasn't anything bad. We were just having a discussion. We were having some chemistry issues between the quarterback and receivers, which happens all the time. Like even when it comes to signals, like we might not see a signal he's throwing, or we might not like the signal. So it was just like a normal conversation that we have just to make sure we're all on the same page when it matters during the game.
I equated it to like when you're on Big Brother. I don't know if you watch that show and you get in trouble and you have like a house meeting. Like, okay, we need to get everybody here.
No.
Like Survivor. No. And it's all good. And then, Case came in, seeing the success he had, seeing him and getting signed on with, the Rams practice squad. What is it like, and you're getting the opportunity, seeing these guys that you play with and trying to get these other opportunities and still grind?
I mean, it's huge. That's really what the whole league is about to majority of the players. A lot of the guys just never got the opportunity to play at the next level. So this is their opportunity to just kind of get some eyes on them. So it's definitely seeing everybody get their opportunities, even like Hard Time and Kavontae Turpin, like a bunch of those guys that's getting their opportunities. That's really what it's all about. So that's very important. So I know a lot of the players, and I'm sure a lot of coaches like to see that too, because it's a good look on them as well.
Looking forward to season 2 here, coming back, thought process here, and deciding to do another season with them and with the Stars and everything else. I'm
really excited, like just to see how we finish the year. I think we have the majority of our team coming back, so just seeing how far we can take it. I know everybody was just getting accustomed to their roles, and just seeing how we can expand on that and just build something special. I mean, we have such a short season, really, so it's hard to build something good in such a short amount of time. But I feel like we're ahead of the game. We have pretty much our whole coaching staff coming back. The majority of the players are coming back, and we all gelled really good, and we finished the season strong. So I'm excited to see how we start off the season this time.
Yeah, I'm always curious, like, it's the spring football dilemma, like how do you build consistency there? And you have guys obviously wanting to pursue other opportunities, either in other leagues or the NFL. Like, is that something you guys talk about? Like, I can't imagine how challenging, like you come in, it's like this whirlwind, you play for, 10 weeks, whatever, in training camp. And then we don't see each other for, 7 months and then come back. Like, how challenging is that?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely difficult. Because in the NFL, you got off season, you have OTAs, you have training camp, and then now you're playing real games. Where as us, we have basically 3 weeks of training camp, and we right to the action. So it's definitely different mentally. Like you got to be able to train all season long and be ready to. You don't really have like a ramp up period before the game start. You got to basically be ready to play a game when we get there March 18th for training camp. So definitely it's a little different process, but I mean, it's just about being a pro and just being ready to be available.
Excited to play in Detroit here, right, with the hub and everything going on there. Thoughts on that and being able to play at Ford Field and everything else?
Definitely. It's very cool. Just the whole league expansion is very cool. I know having four hub cities is going to be very fun, and it's going to be a nice experience having to travel and everything, but definitely excited to play at Ford Field. I actually have family in Detroit, so definitely be cool to go up there, play in front of some fans, and then, of course, play in Ford Field, which is a great field to play at.
I have to imagine, like you said, you didn't come in with the highest of expectations, just not knowing everything that was going on. Now, obviously, having them completed the season, go to season 2, delivering on promises of, okay, we want to expand out in season 2 and 3, has to give you and a lot of the other guys a lot more confidence, right, in everything going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's cool. Like, the league has been doing a phenomenal job with the expansion going on, with the marketing, like keeping all the promises, like all the keeping the players happy. Like it's just the league's done just a great job. They've done beyond what we even expected. Really, like from the treatment wise, they really improved. Like from day one to now is just night and day. So the league's done a great job. It's very player friendly league, and I'm very happy with it.
Well, I appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to it. Anything else before we let you go? Anything else you're working on or you want to share?
Not that I could think of, man. We just ready to get started. I feel like I know it's only been like 7 months now, but it feels like it's been forever since we've finally here playing ball. But definitely grateful and excited for the opportunity to be up in Detroit, and definitely be on the lookout for Philly to have a great year.
No, I'm excited. Now, I wish that Philly maybe could have had a little bit of a rebrand like the Maulers had. I don't know if I love the Ronald McDonald, but I have it now. I mean, I'm locked in. Do you like that? Do you like the black and yellow for the Canton, or not the Canton Maulers, the Pittsburgh Maulers?
I like the color concept. I feel like we could have some nice alternate jerseys with some all yellow jerseys or something. But I mean, it is what it is now. I mean, I ain't got no choice but to like it, so I'm just gonna run with it and. Yes, it is.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We'll be watching. I really appreciate you sitting down today and taking a few minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Huge special thanks to everyone coming on today. AJ Smith, courtesy of everybody over at the Houston Roughnecks. Really appreciate that, setting up that. No, it's not easy. Training camp and ESPN tests or ice storms, everything else. Really appreciate that. Greg Parks, like I said, as always, taking time to come on. I've listened to Greg talk wrestling for many years. Still fun to get to talk to Greg about XFL football. If you had told me 4 years ago you'd be podcasting with Greg Parks, would not have believed it. Special thanks to Brandon, talking the XFL logos. Special thanks to Paul Reeths coming on with OurSports Central, talking USFL Season 2 schedule. And then Ed Balint over at the Canton Repository. And then Devin Gray, USFL Philadelphia Stars. Really appreciate everyone for coming on. Really hope you guys are looking forward to the show next week. It was absolutely crazy trying to get all this scheduled. Choctaw Stadium down there by, Dallas Stadium and everything else. There's not a lot to podcast about there. If you guys follow the show, like we go up to the CFL. We were at the casino this year. We've been at bars. We did we were at Choctaw Stadium for the Arlington, press conference back in July. But trying to find somewhere around Choctaw to go live. The hotel we were originally staying at, the Sheraton, that was kind of across the way. Nowhere to rent there. There was nowhere to rent. They didn't have any space. Couldn't do it in the restaurant. Couldn't do it. They had no conference space, anything to do, even if it would have been like against a white wall or whatever. Hit up the convention center, which was further down, closer to the stadium. Nothing there. They had like a VIP boardroom that was basically like down this long hall, kind of like from 1972. You really appreciated them working with us and trying to figure that out. Had to do internet tests and everything to see if we could even make that feasible. Turned out I just didn't think, aesthetically speaking, if we're going to be that far away from the stadium, I kind of wanted to be in the thick of things, and it just didn't feel like it fit the vibe. I had been trying for weeks to get a hold of Texas Live. That's the conglomerate that manages most of the bars and restaurants around the stadium. Sent in emails, sent in calls, submitted forms, called and called and called. Could not get anyone to respond to there. Finally got in touch with someone from the XFL. They helped me get in touch with the Texas Live people. Lo and behold, no, we don't allow no podcast. Nothing can happen here. We don't allow any shows to podcast, which would have put us, right across the street from the stadium. That was kind of the goal all the time, but I was working through all these other options in case that didn't work out. Then I talked to the Texas Live Hotel, like Lowe's at Texas Live, seeing if we could do it at the bar there. Can't do it at the bar. Can't do it. We have a conference room. Maybe we could rent, but that's the same thing. It's just kind of like how the convention center would be. So now Dorothy and I are staying at a corner suite. Should have a very nice view of Texas Live behind us. All the guests should be calling in remote. We'll have a lot of exciting, football analysts and everybody. I will spoil all of that next week calling in. But a long time, it was about 3 or 4 weeks coordinating, trying to get all of that going for you guys. So I hope you appreciate that. I hope you like and subscribe. Really proud of the guest list I have for the kickoff next week. And then, like I said, I should have bonus content coming to you before kickoff as well with a couple other big guests if I can get that. I do this for you guys. I do it, for your enjoyment. And so I hope you appreciate that. Thank you guys all so much. Liking and subscribing and commenting and sharing and asking questions and everything else you do. It's been a long time getting to next weekend, and I hope it's worth it. I think it will be a lot of fun, and I hope you guys are there to enjoy the ride with me. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Like and subscribe. Thanks.